Chapter 202. One had to know that Zhao Jiqing was the third beauty on the 100-flower list, second only to the hidden fairy valley in Zushanzong Saintus. Moreover, because Zhao Jiqing was too young, her beauty did not stop there. Although the beauty in front of him was very young, she already had a sense of maturity. Compared to Zhao Jiqing, she was slightly foxy, while Zhao Jiqing was more pure. Murong Yu, who was used to seeing beauties, naturally had a high immunity to beauties. Thus, Murong Yu was only dazed for a moment before he reacted. Hu Tong's eyes flashed with astonishment when she saw how quickly Murong Yu had regained his senses. She was very confident in her own beauty. Moreover, for a long time, everyone who saw her was deeply shocked and lost in her beauty. Even those women were shocked by her beauty. At this moment, seeing that Murong Yu was not lost in her beauty, Hu Tong's heart suddenly surged with a strange feeling. "Young Master Murong, please sit," Hu Tong said with a smile while looking at Murong Yu. Murong Yu did not sit down, but looked at the other party with a suspicious gaze and said in a deep voice, "Excuse me for asking, but I don't seem to be very familiar with Miss. Miss, why exactly did you invite me here?" Not only was he not familiar with her, he had never seen her before. This is this little girl's presumptuousness. Actually, this little girl has admired young Master Murong's reputation for a long time. Just now, I saw young Master's great power, which really made this little girl admire you. Since everyone is in the Falling Star Tower, it means that this little girl and young Master are fated. So, I specially invited young Master to come over. Young Master won't mind, right? Hu Tong looked at Murong Yu and smiled brightly like 100 flowers blooming. As the saying goes, one does not hit a smiling person. This was an invitation from a beauty. Although Murong Yu's heart was somewhat non-committal, at least he would not leave without grace. "Please ask for guidance." Murong Yu smiled and cupped his hands. Hu Tong smiled faintly. "Sorry, this little girl is Hu Tong." "Hu Tong? This name seems a bit familiar." Murong Yu frowned slightly. He had some recollection of this name, but he could not think of where he had heard or seen it before. Hearing Murong Yu's words and expression, Hu Tong could not help but feel a bit depressed. She had already said her name, but Murong Yu still did not know. This made Hu Tong feel that she had failed. Hu Tong, the fourth on the 100 Flowers leaderboard. Hu Tong? At this moment, Wu Feng, who had originally sunk into a daze, cried out in surprise. "Ah, I remember. So you're right. Use Hu Tong. That Hu Tong. No wonder it's so familiar. I just looked at the 100-flower list this morning and forgot about it. Sorry about that." Murong Yu patted his head and smiled in embarrassment. At the same time, These two fellows had truly embarrassed Murong Yu too much as they looked at Hu Tong with lecherous expressions. Fortunately, Hu Tong was used to this kind of scene, or else Murong Yu would be embarrassed to death. My goodness, he only saw a beauty like me in the morning and completely forgot about me in the afternoon. Could it be that this guy really did not pay attention to this? Hearing Murong Yu's words, Hu Tong's heart broke. Murong Yu did not have any impression of a beauty like her. Could it be said that she was a failure as a person? She could not help but look at Murong Yu with bitter eyes. "Mr. Murong, you've made this little girl sad. You don't have any impression of me. But it's no wonder. You often have beauties by your side. Although this little girl is very confident in herself, I'm still only fourth. I heard that the third-ranked beauty has a close relationship with Mr. Murong." Murong Yu's heart trembled. Although he did not hide his relationship with Zhao Jiqing, there were not many people who knew. This Hu Tong actually knew so much about him. Then she must have investigated a lot about him beforehand. Inviting him over this time did not seem to be as simple as a chance encounter. As for whatever admiration, and the like, Murong Yu was even less likely to believe. Murong Yu's face fell, and he said, "Miss Hu Tong, inviting me over this time, I'm afraid it's not as simple as a few words, right? If you have something to say, just say it." Although Hu Tong was the fourth-ranked beauty on the 100-flower list, but Murong Yu did not want to be too close to her in his heart. Apart from the trouble it might cause, there was also Hu Tong's identity. Hu Tong, the fourth-ranked beauty on the 100-flower list. and she was the seventh-ranked expert of the young generation. Her strength was unfathomable. Moreover, this girl was one of the 10 great demon kings of the Demon Mountain. She had an unusual relationship with the nine-tailed king. Not of my race, one's heart must be different. Although Murong-yu did not have any rejection of demonic beasts, it was still better to maintain a distance. Otherwise, he did not know when he would be set up by others. Do I have to have something to invite you for a gathering? I just want to be friends with you, young Master Murong. Hutong did not mind and said with a smile. In fact, at this time, Hutong was so depressed in her heart that she wanted to die. This Murong-yu was really too calm. Usually, those people would break their heads to get close to her. But she personally invited Murong-yu over, and this guy had a look of impatience. One had to know that she, Hutong, had never invited another man. Moreover, Hutong had always been more interested in Murong-yu, this person who was famous in the cultivation world. This time, inviting Murong-yu over was really just to get to know him. There was no other intention. Of course, that wasn't what Murong-yu was thinking. Seeing that the atmosphere was a little awkward, Murong-yu laughed and then said, "To be able to be friends with you, that is what I wish for." Hutong rolled her eyes at Murong-yu. "You are too distant to say that. If you don't mind, you could directly call my name." "Okay." Murong-yu sat down and laughed. He also let go. Since Hutong did not have any malicious intentions, he, Murong-yu, did not want to be ungentlemanly. Moreover, being with a beauty was also pleasing to the eye. Although it would not be a feast for the eyes, a beauty was also a beautiful scenery. Therefore, Murong-yu was not in a hurry to leave the private room. He just chatted and laughed with Hutong here. After a long time, Hutong said, "You just offended the 3 major families of Fallen Star City. Are you not worried?" "What is there to worry about? It's just 3 major families. They are not in my eyes," Murong-yu said casually. Hearing this, Hutong was taken aback. Although the 3 major families were not very good, they were still families with transformation stage experts. Such families were not in Murong-yu's eyes. Could it be that Murong-yu still had some trump card or some force behind him? As far as I know, although the 3 major families do not have many transformation stage experts, each family has a transformation stage expert. You have to be careful, Hutong reminded. It's just a transformation stage expert. They can't do anything to me. If I can't beat them, I'll run. It's no big deal, Murong-yu said indifferently. If you can't beat them, run? Hutong couldn't help but laugh. She felt that Murong-yu was more and more interesting. Ordinary experts, especially those famous experts, such as the people on the Dragon Phoenix list, which one of them did not care about their face? If you can't beat them, run? Perhaps only Murong-yu would say it so casually. For some people, even if they died in battle, they would not run. However, this was different from Murong-yu's philosophy. As the saying went, it was never too late for a gentleman to take revenge. If you can't beat them, run. There is nothing to be ashamed of. If your strength is inferior, then you're inferior. What is there to be ashamed of? Murong-yu, come out. At this moment, a roar came from afar. The terrifying roar seemed to shake the entire meteor shower tower. I'm afraid the people from the 3 major families are here to cause trouble. Hutong looked at Murong-yu. She wanted to see how Murong-yu would deal with it. Let's go out and take a look. Murong-yu looked very calm and flew out of the window of the private room. Then Zhang Ao, even Hutong, and the others flew out. Unlike Murong-yu's imagination of being surrounded by a large group of people, there was only one person in the void in the distance. Seeing Murong-yu fly out, this person's gaze shot over. Murderous intent filled the air. Seeing this person, Murong-yu frowned, but Hutong explained, "This person is a genius of the Su family. He is ranked 85 on the Dragon Phoenix list. His name is Su Shanyu. His strength is not bad." After a simple explanation, Hutong looked at Murong-yu and smiled. If you can defeat this person, then you can replace his position and not be at the bottom of the Dragon Phoenix list. That's good. Being at the bottom of the list is a bit embarrassing. I'll go kill him. Murong-yu smiled faintly. Then, he rose into the air and flew towards Su Shanyu. You are Murong-yu? Su Shanyu looked at Murong-yu with disdain. No matter how he looked at Murong-yu, he did not think that Murong-yu was strong. Are you here to die? If you want to die, then come. I don't have time to talk nonsense with you. Murong-yu shrugged and said. Su Shanyu was furious. Don't try to win a battle of words. Today, I will definitely kill you and tell the world that my Su family is not to be offended. As he spoke, Su Shanyu's figure flashed and disappeared. Teleportation. Aside from Murong-yu, the experts on the Dragon Phoenix list were almost all tribulation passing stage cultivators. And the higher the ranking, the stronger the person was. This Su Shanyu was ranked 85. His strength was much stronger than Zhou Su and Hu Lin, who were ranked 90 and 91. Chi. With a single teleport, Su Shanyu appeared in front of Murong-yu. Then, a huge fist like a mountain smashed through the world, carrying with it an extremely frightening power. It was like 10,000 galloping horses. The momentum was vast and shocking to the extreme. It wanted to smash Murong-yu into pieces with a single punch. Although teleportation was fast, Murong-yu was not slow either. The army character formula was known as the fastest cultivation technique in the world. Although Murong-yu had not cultivated it to greater mastery, his speed was not slow either. Murong-yu took a step forward. Then, his figure flashed, and he disappeared. Boom! Chapter 203. Just as Murong-yu's figure disappeared, Su Shanyu's mountain-like fist had already shattered the void there. The terrifying impact was like a flood that swept in all directions. It was very shocking. Looking down, Chun Feng saw that the ground was filled with buildings and countless cultivators. This was not a suitable place for battle. With a shake of his body, Murong-yu had already turned into a ray of light and shot out of the city. If you're not afraid of death, then let's fight outside the city. When Murong-yu's voice was heard, he had already disappeared into the distant horizon. Su Shanyu snorted coldly and teleported. In a few flashes, he had already caught up. At the same time, countless cultivators soared into the sky and chased after the two of them. This was a battle between two experts on the Dragon Phoenix list. How could they miss such an opportunity? After being thousands of miles away from Fallen Star City, Murong-yu finally stopped. He turned around and looked indifferently at Su Shanyu, who was already charging towards him. Die! Before he could get close to Murong-yu, Su Shanyu had already roared and unleashed a terrifying power. He reached out his hand and slammed it towards Murong-yu. Murong-yu narrowed his eyes. He took out the phoenix spear on his back and stabbed it out. Chi! Murong-yu's spear pierced through the void, creating a huge crack in it. A huge black spear light that contained strands of lightning tore through space, tearing through the obstruction of space and time, viciously stabbing at Su Shanyu's hand. Boom! The two terrifying forces instantly collided. After an earth-shattering explosion, the terrifying impact swept in all directions. The void was like a piece of paper. A huge and ferocious crack was torn open. However, in the end, Su Shanyu's strength was still stronger. After the two collided, Murong-yu's spear light was instantly shattered. On the other hand, Su Shanyu's hand only became a little smaller. However, it still contained a terrifying power and slammed towards Murong-yu. Murong-yu coldly snorted, his long spear piercing through the sky. The spear seemed to pierce through the sky, as if it had pierced through the firmament. Murong-yu thrusted out terrifying spear rays one after another. After a few consecutive spear lights, Su Shanyu's palm was finally shattered. Murong-yu, on the other hand, was struck by tremendous force and was sent flying over 100 miles away. Su Shanyu grinned malevolently. He took a step in the air and shattered the void. He rushed up and slammed his palm down again and again. A powerful and frightening energy poured out like an ocean, shattering the void and shaking the heavens. In an instant, it enveloped Murong-yu's entire body, intending to tear him apart. Murong-yu, on the other hand, was roaring in a low voice. He thrust out his spear again and again, shattering Su Shanyu's attacks. However, it was obvious that Murong-yu was at a disadvantage. Under Su Shanyu's barrage of attacks, he was constantly pushed back. Seeing this, the spectators couldn't help but shake their heads. Although they are both on the Dragon Phoenix list, their rankings are more than 10 places apart. The difference in strength is huge too. A cultivator shook his head and laughed. Isn't that so? It's fine if it's just a few places apart, but it's more than 10 places apart. Murong Yu is definitely no match for Su Shanyu. Of course, there were quite a number of people who didn't think so. After all, although Murong Yu was at a disadvantage, he didn't seem to be losing. Most importantly, Murong Yu wasn't attacking. It seemed like he was just passively defending. Murong Yu still hasn't revealed his strength. Looking at the battle in the distance, Hu Tong frowned. Then, she looked at Zhang Ao and the others who weren't far away. Aren't you guys worried about Murong Yu? Hu Tong couldn't help but ask when she saw Zhang Ao and the others' calm expressions. That Su Shanyu is no match for Murong, Yang Man said calmly. Zhang Ao nodded and agreed with Yang Man. Are you guys that confident? Su Shanyu is ranked 85 on the Dragon Phoenix list. Hu Tong was interested and continued to ask. Even two Su Shanyu aren't a match for him. We believe in him. Zhang Ao answered. Hu Tong's interest was piqued. Why did Zhang Ao and the others have so much confidence in Murong Yu? Could it be that Murong Yu still had a hidden trump card? However, Hu Tong didn't expect that Zhang Ao and the others were so confident in Murong Yu. It wasn't because of Murong Yu's strength, but because Murong Yu had the Hichu Luo Shu. Although they didn't know about the existence of the Hichu Luo Shu, Zhang Ao and the others knew that Murong Yu had a treasure that could allow him to leave at any time. As long as he had that treasure, Murong Yu could at least protect himself. Naturally, they had nothing to worry about. Great Vajra, Chakra Seal. Just as Hu Tong was about to ask more questions, Murong Yu let out a low growl from afar. Right at this moment, everyone saw a gigantic black handprint appear above Su Shanyu's head out of nowhere. It was as big as a mountain, and it was surrounded by black lightning bolts. The moment the hand seal appeared, an ancient and grand presence that contained supreme pressure radiated out in all directions. It swept out in all directions, shocking everyone to the core. Rumble. The moment the great Vajra Chakra seal appeared, it shattered the void and shattered the heavens. It was like a mountain crashing down on Su Shanyu. A sense of danger rose in Su Shanyu's heart. He looked up and saw a humongous handprint crashing down on him with a terrifying aura. Seeing the mountain-like handprint, Su Shanyu's heart skipped a beat. He roared and threw a punch at it. Rumble. The mountain-like handprint contained a shocking amount of power. It directly shattered Su Shanyu's power. On the other hand, the great Vajra Chakra seal only trembled slightly before it came crashing down. Su Shanyu was shocked. He roared, "Break the heavens!" The power of 65 horned dragons circled above his head. As for Su Shanyu, he gathered all of his strength on his fist and punched out fiercely. Boom! The punch seemed to break the heavens. Violent energy gushed out crazily. It could be said to be earth-shattering and earth-shattering. Rumble. The two terrifying forces collided violently, and then exploded violently. Chi, under the force of the impact, the void within a few hundred miles was torn apart. Su Shanyu, who bore the brunt of the attack, let out a low roar as he was sent flying. During this process, he violently coughed up blood. He was actually seriously injured. Bang! 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 The terrifying force of the impact swept out in all directions. Some of the cultivators who were closer to the impact were sent flying. In fact, some of the weaker cultivators were unable to withstand such terrifying power. Their bodies exploded and they died an unnatural death. Su Shanyu is injured. Seeing this scene, there was a burst of exclamations from the crowd. What shocked them even more was Murong Yu's Great Vajra Chakra Seal. Great Vajra Chakra Seal? What kind of technique is that? Hu Tong's beautiful eyes shone brightly. She looked at the void that had returned to normal and fell in a deep thought. On the other side, the masked woman in white from the meteor shower tower was also in deep thought. Other than her, some of the stronger cultivators had the same reaction. The Great Vajra Chakra Seal was a set of handprints for the Army Word Manual. It was extremely powerful. A long time ago, the Great Vajra Chakra Seal had extraordinary power. As Murong Yu's power increased, the power of the handprint became even more terrifying. This was the first time in many years that Murong Yu had used the Great Vajra Chakra Seal. However, the power of the Great Vajra Chakra Seal was beyond his expectations. Kill. Great Vajra Chakra Seal. Although Murong Yu was shocked by the power of the Great Vajra Chakra Seal, he did not slow down his movements. With a low roar, the second Great Vajra Chakra Seal appeared and attacked Su Shanyu, who was sent flying. Caught off guard, Su Shanyu suffered a huge loss. At this moment, Su Shanyu was extremely furious. However, he knew the terrifying power of the Great Vajra Chakra Seal. His body swayed, and he steadied himself. Then, he pulled out a treasured sword and injected all his strength into it. With a low roar, he shot up into the sky. Break! A huge sword radiance tore through the sky, wanting to split the sky in half and smash the Great Vajra Chakra Seal into pieces. However, he was already injured and his power was not as strong as when he was at his peak. After an earth-shattering explosion, the huge sword radiance struck the Great Vajra Chakra Seal. However, it did not shatter it. It only slowed down the Great Vajra Chakra Seal. On the other hand, Su Shanyu's sword radiance had already been shattered and the Great Vajra Chakra Seal continued to press down on him. Su Shanyu roared and slashed out continuously. In an instant, hundreds of sword radiances struck towards the Great Vajra Chakra Seal. Die! At that moment, Murong Yu's cold and murderous voice rang in his ears. Su Shanyu was shocked. Without even looking, he slashed out with his sword. Clang! A huge sound of metal clashing was heard. Then, there was a kacha sound that shook everyone's eardrums. The treasured sword in Su Shanyu's hand was shattered. However, Murong Yu was still sent flying. Using the soldier formula, Murong Yu took a step forward, shattering the void. At the same time, Murong Yu turned into a black streak of light and thrust his spear at Su Shanyu. Rumble! At that moment, the Great Vajra Chakra Seal that was pressing down from the void was finally shattered by Su Shanyu's crazy attacks. In a few flashes, Su Shanyu appeared in the distance and avoided Murong Yu's attacks. However, Murong Yu had already decided to kill Su Shanyu. Hence, he used the troop formula and the immortal artifact 100 Birds Facing Phoenix Spear. He turned into a black flowing light and chased after Su Shanyu. Chapter 204. During this process, Murong Yu continuously unleashed a few Great Vajra Chakra Seals towards Su Shanyu. At this moment, Su Shanyu's face was terrifyingly dark. After all, he was a tribulation stage cultivator and was 3 whole realms higher than Murong Yu. Furthermore, he was ranked 85th on the Dragon Phoenix list. But now, he was being suppressed by an out-of-body stage Murong Yu. This was no longer just a matter of losing face. It was a humiliation. With a low roar, Su Shanyu's aura became violent again. Heaven crushing. With a loud roar, Su Shanyu once again attacked with a long sword. He clenched it with both hands and slashed it towards Murong Yu. Great Vajra Chakra Seal. Murong Yu's speed was extremely fast, and he instantly unleashed a few Great Vajra Chakra Seals in front of him, blocking the attack of the sword radiance. On the other hand, Murong Yu's body flickered and he attacked Su Shanyu from the side. At this moment, the Great Vajra Chakra Seals that Murong Yu had unleashed previously had a terrifying and earth-shattering aura. Su Shanyu had nowhere to run. He had already been locked onto by Murong Yu's spiritual will. In the void above, the Great Vajra Chakra Seal that was the size of a mountain had already pierced through the heavens and shattered the void. With a loud roar, Su Shanyu unleashed all his strength and slashed out a huge sword radiance that contained an unparalleled amount of power. It tore through the heavens and was about to shatter the Great Vajra Chakra Seals that were coming down. Boom, boom, boom. But how could the great Vajra chakra seal be so easily shattered? In front of the mountain-like great Vajra chakra imprint, Su Shanyu's shocking sword radiance was almost directly shattered. On the other hand, the great Vajra chakra seal continued to press down without any hindrance. Su Shanyu was shocked. His body flashed, and he was about to teleport into the distance. Dark demonic prajna. At this moment, Murong Yu's roar could be heard. The long spear in his hand suddenly burst out, spewing out a huge spear light that traversed the sky. Wherever the black spear light passed, the void shattered. It was as if a large hole had been pierced through the sky. What was even more terrifying was that as Murong Yu swept out with his spear, two huge and towering phantoms appeared in the void, emitting a terrifying pressure. Phantom of a Fiend God. This move was the most powerful move of the Dragon Elephant Prajna art. Once it was used, the image of the Fiend God would also appear. When Murong Yu was still weak, he had relied on this move to tear apart a strong enemy. A terrifying pressure emanated from the Fiend God's phantom. It was a terrifying aura that could intimidate the myriad worlds. It was a tyrannical and violent aura. Like towering giants, the silhouettes of the two Fiend Gods stood proudly in the sky. They emitted a supreme aura, suppressing the entire area, causing it to constantly collapse and shatter. Aside from Murong Yu, everyone else was intimidated by the frightening aura. None of them were able to withstand the pressure and were forced to retreat. Kill! Following Murong Yu's roar, the Fiend God's phantom seemed to come alive. It stretched out two huge fists and smashed down on Su Shanyu. The void shattered, collapsed, and even was annihilated. The power of the Fiend God was terrifying. A strong sense of danger and death rose in Su Shanyu's heart. At this moment, Su Shanyu even felt despair. Yes, although he was powerful and ranked 85th on the Dragon Phoenix list, he had already been injured by Murong Yu. Now, facing the Fiend God's phantom, he felt even more helpless and hopeless. Rumble, rumble. The void continued to collapse. The opponent of the Fiend God's phantom had already shattered the obstruction of billions of space-time. It quickly appeared above Su Shanyu's head and was about to crush him into dust. How dare you? At this moment, an angry roar came from the direction of Fallen Star City. Then, a huge hand stretched out from the nine heavens. It carried a destructive aura and covered the heaven and earth. It slammed down on the two Fiend God's phantoms. An extremely violent and terrifying aura that caused one's soul to tremble spread out. It shook the heavens and the earth and intimidated the myriad of worlds in the universe. A transformation stage expert. Murong Yu's expression changed drastically. The transformation stage expert of the Su family had finally made his move. However, he had already decided to kill Su Shanyu today. Even a transformation stage expert wouldn't be able to stop him. With a low roar, the two Fiend God's phantoms changed the direction of their attack and met the huge hand in the void. It's just a small trick. Break. The transformation stage expert of the Su family who hadn't shown himself sneered and flipped his hand. Instantly, an aura that could destroy the heavens and the earth erupted, slamming directly onto the fist of the Fiend God phantom. Rumble. After an earth-shattering sound, the Fiend God's phantom's fist was immediately shattered. However, the huge hand covered the sky without any obstruction and slammed down on the two Fiend God's phantoms. Puff, puff. After all, they were only phantoms. They didn't even have a billionth of the original body strength. Under the attack of the transformation stage expert of the Su family, they instantly shattered and disappeared. Roar, roar. At the moment when they shattered, the two Fiend God's phantoms let out a low roar as if they were unwilling to give up. However, limited by Murong Yu's current strength, they weren't a match for the transformation stage expert. Dying. After shattering the two Fiend God's phantoms, Murong Yu's attack naturally missed. After a cold roar, the huge hand that shattered the Fiend God's phantoms slammed down on Murong Yu. The transformation stage expert directly attacked Murong Yu. At this time, The people who saw this scene from afar couldn't help but change their expressions. After all, the transformation stage expert was already at the top of the cultivation world. At this time, he attacked Morongyu. How could Morongyu, who was only at the out-of-body stage, be a match for him? Even Zhang Ao and Yang Man, who had been very calm, couldn't help but change their expressions. Another transformation stage expert directly attacked me. Morongyu raised his head and looked at the huge hand that was slamming down quickly. His face was full of madness. Zhuang Ningguang's master Zhang Jing, the Greenback King, and the expert of the Su family. There were already 4 transformation stage experts who had directly attacked Morongyu, and perhaps even more. So what if you're a transformation stage expert? Even if I'm not a match for you today, I'll kill you myself in the future. Morongyu's eyes were red, and his cold voice contained a terrifying killing intent. Today, Su Shanyu must die. One day, I'll destroy the Su family and leave no one alive. Morongyu roared crazily and began to increase his strength crazily. Even in his Hichu Luoshu, countless energy recovery pills had begun to burn. You talk big. Today, I'll kill you and eliminate you completely. Hearing Morongyu's words, the transformation stage expert of the Su family couldn't help but sneer. His huge hand slammed down quickly, wanting to crush Morongyu directly. Endless heavenly thunder, kill, kill, kill. Morongyu roared loudly. Just as he finished his words, countless tribulation clouds appeared out of thin air above the void. Immediately, the tribulation thunder appeared out of thin air and covered the heaven and earth. It carried a terrifying pressure that could destroy the heaven and earth and struck down. It's the tribulation clouds, the tribulation thunder. Feeling the terrifying pressure from the sky, the surrounding people couldn't help but be shocked. When they saw the endless tribulation clouds and tribulation thunder covering the heaven and earth, the surrounding people's expressions finally changed. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Immediately, everyone unleashed the heavenly thunder and quickly flew into the distance, including Hutong and the masked woman in white. In front of the tribulation thunder, they were so small and didn't dare to take half a step closer. However, Su Shanyu, who was in the middle of the tribulation thunder, was terrified. Even the transformation stage expert of the Su family had a change of expression at this moment. Break! The transformation stage expert was indeed an expert of the transformation stage. After the initial shock, he reacted quickly. Immediately, he turned the direction of his huge hand and slashed at the tribulation clouds in the void. Endless tribulation thunder, destroy the heaven and earth, destroy everything. Morongyu roared as countless bolts of tribulation lightning struck down. In an instant, the entire heaven and earth was filled with tribulation thunder. Under the attack of the tribulation thunder, Su Shanyu bore the brunt and couldn't escape at all. He only had time to let out a scream before he was destroyed by the tribulation thunder. Morongyu, I'm going to kill you. Seeing Su Shanyu being turned into dust by the tribulation thunder, the transformation stage expert of the Su family couldn't help but roar. Kill me? Morongyu stood in the middle of the tribulation thunder like the god of thunder. The tribulation thunder had no effect on him at all. At this moment, the expert of the Su family had given up on destroying the tribulation clouds. Instead, he slapped at Morongyu quickly. Even if your original body was here, I would peel off a layer of skin for you. You want to kill me with this hand formed by condensed energy? Die for me. Morongyu laughed sinisterly as he controlled the boundless tribulation lightning to bombard the large hand. Die. The transformation stage expert of the Su family was furious. He completely gave up on defending and increased his speed to the limit as he slapped at Morongyu fiercely. Destroy. Morongyu kept roaring as the tribulation thunder bombarded the huge hand of the transformation stage expert of the Su family. The terrifying power continued to explode. Even the transformation stage expert couldn't resist the power of the tribulation thunder. Under the bombardment of the tribulation thunder, the huge hand became smaller and smaller. However, The transformation stage expert was still a transformation stage expert. Before the huge hand was completely destroyed, he had already slapped at Murongyu. Bang! As if he was hit by a sacred mountain, a strong force surged. In an instant, Murongyu was sent flying like a kite with a broken string. Chapter 205. Puff! Murongyu couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of blood when he was hit by the Su family's transformation stage expert. Even though his body had reached the strength of a 7th grade spiritual weapon, he couldn't withstand the full blow of a transformation stage expert. At this time, Murongyu's body had already been blown away by this terrifying force. Terrifying cracks, like a spider web, appeared on his body. It was as if his whole body was about to shatter like cracked porcelain. Even though Murongyu's body had reached the level of a 7th grade spiritual weapon. But after all, it was just a body and not a real 7th grade spiritual weapon. After suffering the full blow of the Su family's transformation stage expert, if it weren't for the protective function of the purple ribbon holy robe, Murongyu's whole body would have been blown to pieces by the Su family's transformation stage expert. However, even so, Murongyu didn't feel good. His whole body had been severely injured. Murongyu, I must kill you. Seeing that Murongyu was only blown away by him, the Su family's transformation stage expert roared unwillingly. He wanted to catch up and kill Murongyu in one fell swoop. However, his big hand couldn't withstand the endless heavenly thunder. The moment Murongyu was blown away, his big hand had already been shattered by the endless tribulation thunder. At the same time, a monstrous aura with terrifying killing intent soared into the sky from Meteor City. At the same time, a figure suddenly sprang up from the Su family, turned into a stream of light, tore through the void, and blasted out of the city. Obviously, this was the Su family's transformation stage expert who had just attacked. The big hand couldn't kill Murongyu, so he finally made a move. Murongyu wasn't even a match for the big hand he created. If he attacked with his own body, Murongyu would be even less of a match. At this time, after Murongyu spat out a mouthful of blood, his body shook and disappeared on the spot. Whoosh! On the other side, after the endless tribulation thunder appeared, Zhang Ao and the other two retreated far away. Even though they often cultivated their bodies in the tribulation thunder, their bodies still couldn't withstand such terrifying tribulation thunder. If they were bombarded by the endless tribulation thunder, they would probably be blown to pieces like Su Shanyu. Whoosh! Murongyu appeared beside Zhang Ao and the other two. With a wave of his hand, the three of them were immediately taken into the Hichu Luoshu world. Fairy Hu, I'm sorry, but I'll take my leave first. If there's a chance in the future, I'll treat you to a drink. Murongyu's voice had barely reached Hu Tong's ears when he disappeared. Seeing this scene, Hu Tong was a little dumbfounded. Murongyu can teleport? How of him can teleport? Hu Tong's S was also Savavav. Hu Tong was also capable of teleportation. However, she had immediately discovered that Murongyu wasn't teleporting at all, as there weren't any energy fluctuations. Murongyu appeared and disappeared out of thin air. Could it be that he had some kind of spatial treasure? The more Hu Tong thought about it, the more shocked she was. Murongyu, come out and die. At this time, the Su family's experts had already rushed to the sky. A monstrous aura was emitted, covering the whole world. It was very shocking. However, Murongyu had already disappeared. An enormous amount of divine sense swept out in all directions like a tidal wave, intending to search for Murongyu. However, what infuriated the Su family's transformation stage expert was that Murongyu had disappeared without a trace, as if he'd evaporated into thin air. How could an injured person escape so quickly? With the speed of the Su family's transformation stage experts, they appeared here almost in the blink of an eye. No matter how fast Murongyu was, he couldn't be faster. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The divine thoughts spread out crazily. At the same time, the Su family's experts had already used their fastest speed to search for Murongyu nearby. However, even if they searched every inch of space within a radius of 10,000 miles, they still couldn't find any trace of Murong-Yu. This made the Su family's transformation stage experts very angry. That terrible roar spread far and wide. Not long after, many experts of the Su family, Zhu family, and Zhang family left their families and began to search for Murong-Yu. However, even if they searched 3 feet within a radius of 10,000 miles, they still couldn't find any trace of Murong-Yu. Murong-Yu seemed to have disappeared into thin air, and so did his 3 followers. On this day, Hu Tong was resting in her courtyard in Fallen Star City. "Miss, people from the 3 major families came to visit you. They hope to see you." Hu Wei walked over and reported. Hu Wei, Hu Tong's maid, had seen Murong-Yu before. "People from the 3 major families?" Hu Tong snorted coldly. In the past 3 days, people from the 3 major families had been searching for everything about Murong-Yu. Naturally, the fact that Murong-Yu and Hu Tong used to be together, and that he had met Hu Tong before disappearing, naturally couldn't be hidden from their eyes and ears. This time, people from the 3 major families came together. To put it nicely, they came to visit her. To put it bluntly, they wanted to force her to reveal Murong-Yu's whereabouts. The people from the 3 major families probably suspected that Hu Tong knew Murong-Yu's whereabouts. "Miss, do you want to make them leave?" Hu Wei saw Hu Tong's face turn cold and immediately said, "No need. I want to see what the 3 major families can do." Hu Tong sneered and then left the room with Hu Wei. In the living room, more than 10 people from the 3 major families were already waiting in the hall. The moment Hu Tong appeared, everyone's eyes suddenly lit up. They were all stunned by Hu Tong's beauty. In contrast to the woman in white, who always covered her face and refused to see others, Hu Tong never hid her beauty and role. On the contrary, she showed her most beautiful side to the world. However, this didn't mean that Hu Tong was willing to see these people looking at her like perverts. This was an insult to her. Immediately, she couldn't help but snort coldly and slowly sweep her eyes over everyone. Then, she sat on the main seat and said indifferently, "People from the 3 major families have come to my humble abode. What advice do you have for me?" "Miss Hu, please excuse us. We've already heard of your reputation. This time, we only came because of your reputation." An expert from the Su family stepped forward and said, "I've already been in Fallen Star City for some time. I haven't seen you come because of my reputation, but you just had to come at this time. Everyone knows what you're planning." Hu Tong's voice was indifferent and didn't give them any face. "Since Miss Hu has already guessed our intentions, we'll be frank. We just want to ask if Miss Hu knows where Murong-Yu is. If you know, can you tell us the 3 great clans? We'll definitely reward you handsomely." An expert from the Zhang family stepped forward and said in a deep voice, "I don't know." Hu Tong said straightforwardly. She really didn't know. Moreover, even if she knew, why would she tell them? "I heard that Murong-Yu met you before he disappeared." This, an expert from the Zhu family looked at Hu Tong and said with a gloomy face, "So what? Do you suspect that I'm the one who hid Murong-Yu and the others?" Hu Tong frowned slightly, and a trace of killing intent leaked out. She was a super expert ranked 7th on the Dragon Phoenix list, and her background was even more shocking. How could she be afraid of these people? If these people didn't know what was good for them, she didn't mind killing them. The 3 major families? She didn't care about them. "Miss Hu, you don't have a deep relationship with Murong-Yu. You've offended the 3 major families for a person you met by chance. Are you threatening me?" Hu Tong's face instantly darkened, and traces of killing intent spread out. Others were afraid of the 3 major families, but she never put them in her eyes. No one dares to offend the 3 major families here. An expert from the Zhu family said coldly with a murderous aura, "Is that so? What are the 3 major families? Do you believe that I can kill all of you and the 3 major families won't even dare to make a sound?" Hu Tong looked at the expert from the Zhu family who spoke. Endless killing intent spread out and enveloped the people from the 3 major families. Damn it! Perhaps the people from the 3 major families were used to being domineering, but at this moment, they had already forgotten Hu Tong's identity. How could the 3 major families dare to offend the young expert from the 9-tailed king's bloodline? one of the 10 demon kings of the Demon Mountain. In front of other people, the 3 major families might be a colossus. But in front of the 9-tailed king, they were nothing. As long as the 9-tailed king was unhappy, the 3 major families would disappear from the cultivation world. Leave this place immediately. Scram! Hutong shouted with a gloomy face. Then, she flung her sleeves and left the living room. Although the people from the 3 major families were furious, they didn't dare to do anything. After all, Hutong was much more powerful than they were. Not to mention the power behind Hutong. Hutong alone could take care of all of them. In the end, the people from the 3 major families could only leave with their tails between their legs. At this moment, the news of Murong Yu killing Su Shanyu and escaping from the Su family's transformation stage experts had already spread. Before this, although Murong Yu betrayed Zhu Shinzong and escaped from the hands of Zhu Shinzong's transformation stage experts, those people from Zhu Shinzong's side only saw those from Zhu Shinzong's side. However, those were only things that the Void Sky Sect's disciples had seen. Furthermore, Murong Yu had only seen them because of the golden skeleton. But now, Murong Yu relied on his own strength to kill Su Shanyu and escape from the hands of a transformation stage expert. The people of the cultivation world finally saw Murong Yu's true strength. Even if he didn't rely on various treasures, Murong Yu was still very powerful. And after he killed Su Shanyu, his ranking on the Dragon Phoenix list jumped to 85, replacing Su Shanyu's original position. Chapter 206. After killing Su Shanyu, Murong Yu's ranking on the Dragon Phoenix list jumped from the bottom to 85th. Murong Yu's sudden rise in the ranking once again aroused heated discussions. Those young experts on the Dragon Phoenix list who were suppressed by Murong Yu were naturally unconvinced by Murong Yu's ranking. All of them wanted to find Murong Yu, defeat him, and replace him. However, even the 3 major families of Fallen Star City were mobilized. Even their transformation stage experts couldn't find Murong Yu. Naturally, they couldn't find Murong Yu either. Unless Murong Yu showed himself, no one in the world could find him. Hichu Luoshu World Whoosh. The void distorted, and then 4 figures appeared out of thin air and fell to the ground. Leader, are you okay? Boss, Murong Yu. The 4 people who appeared were Murong Yu. Murong Yu, who had completely endured the full blow of the Su family's transformation stage expert that day, was now very terrifying. His body, which had already reached the level of a grade 7 spiritual artifact, was now cracked like porcelain. It was a shocking sight. It was as if Murong Yu's entire body would shatter upon contact. Seeing Murong Yu's miserable state, Zhang Ao and the others were shocked and asked with concern, "I'm fine, I won't die." Zhang Ao, show Wu Feng around. I'll go heal first. After reluctantly instructing Zhang Ao, Murong Yu disappeared on the spot. When he reappeared, he was still in the grade 4 spiritual vein that he had taken from the Polar Light sect. Time acceleration. Murong Yu directly burned the overflowing spiritual energy of the spiritual vein, directly accelerating the nearby time by 100 times. And he began to devour spiritual energy in the spiritual vein to recover his body. In order not to expose the secret of Hichu Luoshu, when the Su family's transformation stage expert attacked, Murong Yu didn't use Hichu Luoshu. Moreover, he had been too careless back then. Originally, he thought that under the bombardment of endless tribulation thunder, the Su family's transformation stage expert's big hand would not be able to attack him at all. However, he did not expect that he had still underestimated his opponent. Or rather, he had overestimated the power of the heavenly lightning. With his current strength, the heavenly lightning he controlled was not very powerful. Fortunately, Murong Yu didn't need to activate the Purple Ribbon Holy Robe. When it sensed danger, the Purple Ribbon Holy Robe's defensive ability automatically activated and blocked Murong Yu's attack. Otherwise, Murong Yu would have been killed long ago. However, this did not feel good either. His body, which was at the level of a 7th grade spirit artifact, was almost crushed. A portion of his meridians were also crushed. He was already seriously injured. However, It was fine as long as he didn't die. After accelerating the flow of time by 100 times, it took him 10 years to recover from his injuries. If you didn't have the support of a huge amount of spirit chi and various precious healing elixirs, he probably wouldn't be able to recover 1% of his injuries in 10 years. Yu's body was getting stronger and stronger, but on the contrary, once Yu's body was injured, it was extremely difficult to recover. The stronger the body, the more difficult it was to recover after being injured. This was an inverse relationship. Of a 9 words mantra, the army formula focuses on speed. If I can get the formula, then I can recover in the shortest time after being injured, right? The formula focused on recovery. When cultivated to the extreme, as long as the soul was not destroyed, one could quickly recover. It was truly immortal. Of course, the 9 words mantra was the most powerful and mysterious formula in this world. Although it existed, if one wanted to meet or obtain it, it was impossible without a strong enough destiny. Yu had managed to obtain one of the 9 words mantra in a daze. In the secular world, he could be described as a lucky bastard. As soon as this thought flashed through his mind, Yu waved it away. Yu would definitely look for the remaining 8 words of the 9 words mantra. But he didn't have to be too deliberate. After all, everything still depended on Yu's destiny. After his body and strength recovered to the peak, Yu didn't leave immediately. Instead, he sat down and carefully recalled the battle with Su Shanyu and the Su family's transformation stage experts. After recalling the entire battle from beginning to end, Yu discovered many of his own shortcomings. Now that Yu was limited by his strength, the combat skills he used weren't very powerful. These combat skills, the Dragon Elephant Prajna technique, and the control of the Lightning Tribulation all had great power. However, Yu only used 1/10,000th of it. After absorbing the battle experience and seeing his own shortcomings and his opponent's strengths, many days later, Yu left the spirit vein feeling refreshed. Although his realm and physical body didn't break through again. However, his combat experience had also increased. At this time, Yu even felt that if he fought with Su Shanyu again, it would be easier for him to kill him. His strength and physical body didn't increase, but Yu's strength and combat strength had become stronger. This was the benefit of absorbing battle experience. The 3 big families of Fallen Star City, transformation stage experts. A cold light flashed through Yu's eyes. This time, the Su family's transformation stage experts actually attacked him. This had already aroused Yu's killing intent. Zushinzong, Yuan's Su sect, I still don't have the ability to flatten them, but a small Su family. Yu kept sneering as thoughts flashed through his mind. Murderous intent surged and filled the air. Yu was ranked 85 on the Dragon Phoenix list. After a month of frenzied search for Yu, the 3 big families of Fallen Stars City slowly calmed down. After all, Yu had disappeared from the face of the earth. He had probably gone into hiding long ago. After all, although he was strong, he was only one person. How could he go against the 3 big families? Just like before, after Yu betrayed Zushinzong, he also disappeared for a long time. At that time, even Zushinzong, one of the top 10 sects, couldn't find Yu, let alone the 3 big families of Fallen Star City. More than a month after Yu killed Su Shanyu, Fallen Star City bought a Chamber of Commerce branch. An ordinary-looking young man slowly walked into Bada Chamber of Commerce. Fallen Star City was one of the 5 major cities in the cultivation world. As the strongest Bada Chamber of Commerce in the cultivation world, although their headquarters wasn't here, the branch here wasn't bad either. It was much bigger than Upper Qingcheng. The entire Chamber of Commerce was like a palace in the secular world. It was luxurious and grand. The most important thing was that people came and went. It was very lively. Yu. Just as Yu stepped into Bada Chamber of Commerce, he heard a shout. Yu was stunned. However, his expression didn't change as he walked straight in. He was wearing a mask now. Moreover, he didn't have the fragrance of the lotus flower on him. How could anyone recognize him? Of course, other than Zhao Jiqing, Yu Mengqing, and the rest. However, the voice just now was obviously a man's. How could that be? Murong Yu's expression didn't change. It was as if he didn't hear anything. After all, many people were still talking about Murong Yu. Perhaps they were talking about him. If he were to rashly give himself away, then he would be exposed. Murong Yu, long time no see. However, the voice was heard again. Judging from the tone of the voice, it was obvious that he had recognized Murong Yu. Murong Yu's expression changed. He raised his head and looked over. In the next moment, he was stunned. A man in front of him was walking over and looking at him with a smile. It turned out to be an acquaintance. Murong Yu immediately smiled and greeted him. Long time no see. Supervisor Wu, why are you here so leisurely? The person who came was Wu Dong. He was the supervisor of Bada Chamber of Commerce in Upper Qingqing. He was the guy who sold Murong Yu the mask. The mask Murong Yu was wearing was sold to Murong Yu by this guy. How could he not recognize him? Wu Dong laughed. Thanks to you, I am now the supervisor of the Luoxing City branch. Murong Yu was shocked. This guy had actually become the manager of this place? It seemed that he was going to have a meteoric rise. The Bada Chamber of Commerce, other than the headquarters in Yanshuijian, was the largest branch in the remaining 4 major cities in the cultivation world. It was also the branch with the best business. Wu Dong was actually the supervisor of the Luoxing City branch. It was not an exaggeration to say that he was going to have a meteoric rise. Being able to become the supervisor of the Luoxing City branch meant that Wu Dong had truly entered the core circle of the Bada Chamber of Commerce. However, this guy was actually the supervisor of this branch. This made Murong Yu's plan even smoother. Haha, it's because of your outstanding ability that you could be promoted so quickly. Murong Yu said with a flattering smile. Haha, it's all thanks to you. If it weren't for you, I'm afraid that I would still be struggling in Upper Qingqing. Since we're here, why don't we have a few drinks? Wu Dong invited. In fact, he was not being polite. The reason why he could become the supervisor of this branch in just a few years was largely due to Murong Yu. If it weren't for Murong Yu, he would not have been appreciated by Great Elder Qi Yang. If it weren't for Great Elder Qi Yang's appreciation, he wouldn't have been able to complete several big business deals in the past few years and wouldn't have been able to sit in this position. Then it would be impolite of me to refuse. Murong Yu smiled and walked in with Wu Dong. When old friends met, they naturally had something to talk about. After 3 rounds of wine and 5 dishes, Murong Yu's expression suddenly became serious. Brother, you also know what happened more than a month ago. Wu Dong nodded. I heard. Brother, you're really amazing. You actually escaped the pursuit of the Su family's transformation stage experts. Wu Dong looked at Murong Yu in surprise. He was very surprised by Murong Yu's strength. It's just luck. Those old farts from the Su family actually dared to make a move on me. I, Murong Yu, am not that easy to bully. Wu Dong frowned slightly. Brother, I'm not trying to pour cold water on you. Although you're strong, you're still not a match for the Su family, Zhang family, and Zhu family. As the saying goes, revenge is a dish best served cold. Don't mess around. Murong Yu sneered. Although not a match for them, I have this. At the same time, Murong Yu flipped his hand, and suddenly a purple token appeared. Wu Dong's expression changed dramatically when he saw the token. Chapter 207. Octopus Token. Wu Dong's face instantly changed. When he saw the token made of purple gold, he already knew what Murong Yu was going to do. That's right, Murong Yu was holding the Octopus Token of the Octopus Chamber of Commerce. It was a very useful token that no more than 10 people had. With the Octopus Token, not only would one have a 20% discount in the Octopus Chamber of Commerce, but the holder of the token could also ask the Octopus Chamber of Commerce to do 3 things for free. 3 things that the Octopus Chamber of Commerce could do. Now that Murong Yu took out the Octopus Token, it was time to ask the Octopus Chamber of Commerce to fulfill their promise. Although I'm not a match for the Su family, I'm still a match for the 3 major families. However, it shouldn't be a problem for the Octopus Chamber of Commerce, right? Murong Yu looked at Wu Dong and said with a smile. Wu Dong nodded. For the Octopus Chamber of Commerce, destroying the three major families was indeed not a problem. However, just to destroy the three major families, Morong Yu was going to waste a chance? The three chances on the octopus token are extremely precious. Brother, I hope you can consider it carefully and not waste it on meaningless things. Wu Dong said in a deep voice. Morong Yu shook his head. The Su family must be destroyed. Moreover, I don't think it's a waste. All right, brother, don't try to persuade me. Can you make the arrangements? Seeing Morong Yu's determined look, Wu Dong sighed and said, I can't make the decision on this matter. I need to ask for instructions. It may take 3 to 5 days. As a friend, although Wu Dong did not want Morong Yu to waste such a precious opportunity, he was still the Octopus Chamber of Commerce's Octopus Chamber of Commerce. However, he was still the manager of the Bada Chamber of Commerce. From a moment Morong Yu took out the Bada medallion, he couldn't refuse. Morong Yu nodded. I'll go ask for instructions now. Brother, you can stay in the Chamber of Commerce for the next few days. Before leaving, Wu Dong said. Morong Yu nodded in agreement, but did not leave. Not long after, Wu Dong came back again. Brother, I've already asked for instructions. The experts of our Chamber of Commerce can arrive in 3 days. When the time comes, are you going to exterminate the Su family or exterminate the 3 great families together? Seeing Wu Dong calmly ask if he wanted to exterminate the 3 great clans, Morong Yu was taken aback. Although these 3 families weren't very good, they still had several experts in the transformation stage. Yet, the Bada Chamber of Commerce was completely dismissive of them. One could imagine how terrifying the Bada Chamber of Commerce's power was. This time, I'm only going to destroy the Su family, and I don't need your experts to do anything. You just need to help me block the Su family's transformation stage experts, as well as the Zhu family and Zhang family's experts. I'll take care of the rest myself. Morong Yu's eyes flashed with a murderous light as he spoke. If it wasn't for the fact that he wasn't a match for a transformation stage expert, he wouldn't have wasted this precious opportunity from the Bada Chamber of Commerce. As for the Zhang clan and Zhu clan, Morong Yu didn't have any plans to destroy them for the time being. As long as he had the strength to deal with the experts in the transformation period, he would not hesitate to destroy these 2 families. Now is not the time. All right. However, although these 3 clans aren't very good, you have to be careful about the City Lord of Fallen Star City. Wu Dong warned Morong Yu with a dignified expression. Morong Yu looked at Wu Dong with slight astonishment. Even with the Bada Chamber of Commerce's power, they were still so cautious about the City Lord of Fallen Star City. Could it be the City Lord of Fallen Star City? With doubts in his heart, Morong Yu immediately asked. Wu Dong just shook his head and said, I don't know the details, but the City Lord of Fallen Star City is definitely not a weak force. I can only tell you that even 10 of the 3 great clans wouldn't be a match for the City Lord of Fallen Star City. Not only Fallen Star City, but the City Lords of the 5 great cities in the cultivation world are also not simple forces. Morong Yu was surprised and remembered Wu Dong's words in his heart. 3 days passed quickly. The experts of the Bada Chamber of Commerce had all arrived. However, they were very secretive and didn't show themselves. Even Morong Yu couldn't see them. On this night, brother, your men only need to block those experts in the transformation period for me. You don't have to interfere with the rest. Morong Yu said again. At the same time, Morong Yu had already leaped into the air and rushed out of the Bada Chamber of Commerce. He shot toward the Su family. Just as Morong Yu leaped into the air, dozens of figures also rose from the Bada Chamber of Commerce. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. With a sway of their bodies, these figures disappeared from their original positions. All of them had teleported away. The Su family. It was an extremely luxurious mansion that was countless times larger than a palace in the secular world. At this moment, in the void outside the Su family, a figure appeared out of thin air. Who are you? How dare you spy on the Su family at night? Leave quickly. The moment this figure appeared, it was discovered by the experts patrolling the Su family. After a furious roar, several figures leaped into the sky and pounced on the figure that had just appeared. The person who had just appeared was Morong Yu. At this moment, Morong Yu's face was cold and murderous. He looked at the person who had just arrived with a disdainful expression. Endless calamity thunder. Destroy everything for me. Morong Yu suddenly let out a low growl and pointed his finger. Suddenly, the entire sky above the Su family was shrouded by endless calamity clouds. At the same time, endless calamity thunder appeared out of thin air and covered the entire sky. It enveloped the entire Su family and struck down. Rumble, rumble. The moment the endless calamity thunder appeared, the dazzling lightning instantly lit up the dark night sky as if it was daytime. Endless and terrifying pressure spread out like a tide, suppressing all the worlds in the universe. It was extremely terrifying. Many experts in the Su family who bore the brunt of it reacted immediately. However, when they saw the calamity thunder filling the entire void and striking down, their faces changed drastically. Damn it, what's going on? The experts in the Su family came out and looked at the calamity thunder in the void. They kept growling and cursing. Many people had even begun to leave the Su family. Endless calamity thunder, destroy it for me. Morong Yu sneered and controlled the endless calamity thunder to envelop and devour everything. The entire void was filled with dazzling calamity thunder, revealing a destructive aura. The first to bear the brunt of the calamity thunder's terrifying power were the few experts who leaped into the sky. Under the terrifying power of the endless calamity thunder, they didn't even have time to scream before they were struck by the heavenly thunder. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Several experts in the transformation period of the Su family were also alarmed. When they saw the calamity thunder striking down from the sky, their faces immediately turned green. However, the experts in the transformation period were experts in the transformation period after all. They didn't panic in the face of danger. Several experts in the transformation period roared and joined forces to set up a shield above the Su family to prevent the endless calamity thunder from striking down. At the same time, the entire Meteor City had been alarmed by the sky, full of calamity thunder and terrifying pressure. Countless cultivators leaped into the sky and rushed toward the Su family. The experts of the Zhang family and the Zhu family also set out and rushed in the direction of the Su family. Even the city lord mansion in the distance was alarmed by the endless calamity thunder at this time. Morong Yu, it's you, little bastard. After several experts in the Su family joined forces to set up a shield, it temporarily blocked the endless calamity thunder's bombardment, preventing the Su family from being destroyed. At this time, an old man among the experts in the transformation period saw Morong Yu not far away and couldn't help but roar. Then, he leaped into the sky and rushed toward Morong Yu. It's you, old fart? Seeing the old man rushing toward him, Morong Yu suddenly gritted his teeth. This old man was the expert in the transformation period who attacked him that day. Today, the Su family will be uprooted by me, and the culprit of all this is you, old fart, huh? Morong Yu laughed wildly. He didn't put the expert in the transformation period in his eyes at all. Then you will die for me first. The old man grinned and stretched out his big hand to grab Morong Yu fiercely. Bang! However, the moment the old man made his move, another big hand shattered the void and came from afar, intercepting the old man's attack. Your opponent is me. A phantom flashed, and a man in black with a mask on his face blocked the old man's attack. Who are you? The pupils of the Su family's elder shrank fiercely. This was because he was horrified to find that the opponent's aura was stronger than his. If you don't want to die, don't interfere in this matter. Otherwise, I will kill you. The man in black looked at the Su family's elder and said coldly. At the same time, phantoms kept flashing in the void, and several men in black with an incomparably powerful and terrifying aura appeared in the sky. Break for me! Several men in black attacked at the same time, blasting the protective shield set up by several experts in the transformation period of the Su family below. Bang! It was obvious that the strength of the men in black was much stronger than the experts in the transformation period of the Su family. With just one blow, the protective shield set up by their joint efforts was shattered. Immediately, the men in black swayed, and each of them faced one expert in the transformation period. A terrifying pressure was released, making the experts in the transformation period of the Sioux family feel despair. You in the transformation period better leave here. Otherwise, I can guarantee that after tonight, there will be no more experts in the transformation period of the Sioux family. A man in black said faintly, "Nonsense, all of you, kill these bastards." The moment their protective shield was broken, endless tribulation thunder blasted down, and some of the people in the Sioux family were directly killed. If they hesitated, the Sioux family would really be wiped out today. With a roar, the Sioux family's elder who once attacked Murong Yu disappeared in place with a teleport. When he reappeared, he had already avoided the men in black in front of him and appeared in front of Murong Yu. This guy actually wanted to kill Murong Yu. "You are courting death." The man in black was obviously very angry at the Sioux family's elder's behavior. With a low roar, he stepped out and shattered the void. With a flip of his hand, he shattered countless obstacles in space and time. He attacked later, but arrived first, and punched fiercely toward the head of the Sioux family's elder. Chapter 208. Bang! The man in black attacked first. With a punch, the head of the Sioux family's elder exploded. With just one punch, an expert in the transformation stage was killed. The strength of the man in black was so strong. Could it be that he was an immortal? No matter how weak the Sioux family's elder was, he was still an expert in the transformation stage. Scarlet blood splattered everywhere. Murong Yu was stunned by the scene. At the same time, the cultivators who heard the news were so shocked that they couldn't help but gasp. However, the people of the Sioux family didn't think so. Seeing that one of their family's experts in the transformation stage was killed just like that, the remaining cultivators in the transformation stage were immediately enraged. One by one, they roared and madly attacked the men in black who were blocking them. The tribulation thunder rolled and filled the entire space. It constantly bombarded and destroyed everything. Boundless pressure spread out, suppressing the myriad worlds. The sound of the explosion of power, the screams of dying, the unwilling and angry roars. One after the other, waves of power burst out, tearing the sky and splitting the earth. It was like a brilliant firework exploding in the void. It contained a terrifying aura that could destroy heaven and earth, crazily bombarding the other party. Kill them all. The leader of the men in black, who was also the first to kill the Sioux family's elder, suddenly gave the order. After receiving the order, the men in black from the Bada Chamber of Commerce who didn't kill initially seemed to have been injected with chicken blood. The power in their bodies suddenly became violent. Boom, boom, boom. One by one, their power skyrocketed. They poured their power into their fists or weapons and killed in all directions. Puff! An expert in the initial stage of the transformation stage of the Sioux family was suddenly attacked by the man in black. In less than 3 moves, he was slashed in half and killed directly. Boom! Not long after, another expert in the transformation stage of the Sioux family was torn into pieces by a man in black. Not long after, the 5 experts in the transformation stage of the Sioux family were all killed. In front of the men in black, the transformation stage experts in the Sioux family were simply not enough. After a great battle, only one of the men in black was slightly injured. Murong Yu secretly wiped the cold sweat off his forehead as he looked at the incomparably ferocious black-clothed men. These black-clothed men were not only powerful, but most importantly, they killed without batting an eyelid, and their techniques were incomparably skillful. It seemed that these people often did this kind of thing. In fact, Murong Yu's guess was correct, and he already knew the identity of these black-clothed men. The black-robed man was definitely a secret force of the Bada Chamber of Commerce. Otherwise, the Bada Chamber of Commerce, as the largest chamber of commerce in the cultivation world, would have many enemies. In the cruel world of cultivation, who would do business with you fairly? Healthy competition? Even if the various large chambers of commerce appeared to be harmonious on the surface, they were definitely teasing each other in secret. The Black-Robed Men were a powerful force in the Bada Trade Association. They specialized in doing things that the Bada Trade Association couldn't do openly. After the Black-Clothed Man killed the Sioux family's transformation stage expert, the entire Sioux family gradually turned into ruins under the bombardment of endless tribulation thunder. Even the crossing calamity stage experts couldn't withstand the endless tribulation thunder and were almost all killed. There were also some crossing calamity stage experts who wanted to escape, but the Black-Clothed Man casually pointed at them and directly shattered them. As for the cultivators below the crossing calamity stage, although there were many of them who could withstand the endless tribulation thunder, it didn't take long for the entire Sioux family to be destroyed. The three major families in the Fallen Star City had become two major families at this time. From the beginning to the end, except for the Sioux family, the remaining two major families didn't dare to make a move. It wasn't that they didn't help. They originally wanted to kill Muronyu. It was just that when the Black-Clothed Man killed the Sioux family's transformation stage expert like a gust of wind sweeping away the fallen leaves, the experts of the Zhang and Zhu families fell silent. If they dared to make a move, then they would follow in the footsteps of the Sioux family's expert and be killed. The relationship between the three families was good, and they were usually in cahoots. However, it wasn't worthwhile to let their families be buried in the hands of these Black-Clothed Men. At this time, when they entered the destroyed Sioux family, the surrounding people quietly watched and didn't leave. This was because Muronyu and the Black-Clothed Man didn't leave. Muronyu, do you want to destroy the Zhang and Zhu families while you're at it? The leading Black-Clothed Man walked in front of Muronyu and said. Hearing this, Muronyu, including the surrounding people, couldn't help but be shocked. On the other hand, the people from the Zhang and Zhu clans were startled. If these Black-Clothed Men really wanted to make a move, the two families would definitely be destroyed in an instant. This was because they vaguely felt that these Black-Clothed Men weren't as few as they seemed on the surface. In the dark, there must be many Black-Clothed Men hiding in the dark. These guys want to destroy the two families while they're at it. Muronyu felt ashamed in his heart. He felt that compared to these Black-Clothed Men, he was far inferior. Muronyu, there's no conflict between us. Our family has never made a move against you. Our family was going to deal with the trash you killed, but you killed him. Our family should be grateful to you. Moreover, our family has already decided that we will never make things difficult for you in the future. Before Muronyu could speak, an expert from the Zhang family stepped out and said at the same time. Then, an expert from the Zhu family also stepped out and said something similar. Muronyu sneered in his heart. This was the so-called face of a big family. These two families obviously hated him to death, but now they were worried that the Black-Clothed Men would destroy them. So they said these ridiculous reasons. Am I the one who killed your family? You really don't hate me? Muronyu said with an inexplicable smile on his face. Haha, those trash, if they die, then they die. Why would we hate you because of that trash? An expert from the Zhu family said with a smile. Then, these two experts said a lot of nice things to Muronyu. Nothing more than that they would never find trouble with Muronyu in the future. Muronyu and the surrounding people were disgusted. I'm sorry, you also heard them. They said that they will not find trouble with me, so I don't need to destroy them. Muronyu turned to look at the Black-Clothed Man leader and said with a smile, What a pity. The Black-Clothed Man leader sighed with a look of pity, but made Muronyu and the others feel incomparably ashamed. On the other hand, the two experts from the Zhu clan and the Zhang clan heaved a sigh of relief. The two experts secretly wiped off the cold sweat on their foreheads. Then, one after another, they soared into the sky and returned to their clans. Muronyu absolutely could not be offended. Not to mention Muronyu's strength was abnormally strong. The Black-Clothed Men behind him were even more terrifying. Because until now, no one had discovered the identity of the Black-Clothed Men, they naturally thought that these Black-Clothed Men were the forces behind Muronyu. With such a terrifying backing, who would dare to provoke Muronyu? Search. Dig 3 feet into the ground and search. At this moment, Muronyu suddenly roared. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Almost at the same time as Murong Yu's voice died down, black figures rushed out from the dark near the Su family and began to search the ruins of the Su family's residence. It was the black-clothed men again. However, these black-clothed men were not as strong as the black-clothed men who had appeared before. But all of them were in the combination realm and were in the same realm. These were the members of Murong Yu's chaos. Originally, he wanted to use this incident to let these members have a real battle. However, these people from the Su family were too weak. These members of Chaos did not even have time to attack before they were all blasted into ashes by the Tribulation Thunder. Now, they could only search for the things left behind by the Su family. Not long after, a member found a secret passage. Obviously, the secret passage was where the Su family stored all kinds of things. After discovering the secret passage, Murong Yu jumped down. There were too many things inside, so many that he had to use Hichu Luoshu to collect them all at once. Seeing that Murong Yu had found the secret passage, the surrounding people could not help but be tempted. It was the treasure room of one of the 3 big families in Fallen Stars City. Whoever obtained it would become rich overnight. In fact, many people were already tempted. As for the black-clothed men from the Bada Chamber of Commerce, they did not leave immediately, but stood guard above the ruins to prevent anyone from coming to make trouble. As for the treasures of the Su family, the black-clothed men acted as if they did not see them. Their mission was only to kill people. They didn't care about anything else. I've made a fortune. I've made a fortune. Under the secret passage, Murong Yu had already transferred many recovery pills and other elixirs into the Hichu Luoshu world. In the process, he even found 10 spiritual veins. Although the highest grade was only a 3rd grade spiritual vein, there were 10 spiritual veins. Those were spiritual veins, not recovery pills. After sweeping through the secret passage, Murong Yu's face was full of lewd smiles. The Su family was indeed one of the 3 big families in Fallen Star City. Their wealth was comparable to some of the first-rate sections. So I made a huge loss. After discovering the terrifying treasures of the Su family, Murong Yu suddenly felt that he had made a huge loss. If the Su family alone was so great, then what about the other 2 big families? If he had known, he would have agreed to the black-clothed men to destroy the remaining 2 big families in one fell swoop. However, after thinking about it, he had to settle things with the 2 big families. Sooner or later, their things would be his. As long as he waited for his strength to increase, then he would destroy the 2 big families. After ransacking the Su family, Murong Yu walked out with a lewd smile on his face. Chapter 209. When the surrounding people saw Murong Yu's lewd expression, as if he'd been satisfied, they inwardly sighed. This guy had taken all the treasures that the Su family had plundered for countless years. How could he not be satisfied? How could he not be lustful? Envy, jealousy, and hatred. This was the portrayal of the surrounding people's feelings. Feeling the envy, jealousy, hatred, greed, and other emotions from the surrounding people, Murong Yu sneered in his heart. If these guys dare to snatch, he wouldn't mind killing them all. Moreover, after seeing the terrifying strength of the man in black, these people would probably have to think twice before taking action. After all, the strength of the man in black was too terrifying. With a wave of his hand, the members of Chaos in Black suddenly soared into the sky and flew out of Meteor City. During this process, many experts in Meteor City also soared into the sky and followed the members of Chaos. Seeing this, Murong Yu sneered again. These people wanted nothing more than to find Murong Yu's lair. However, could they do it? Murong Yu wasn't worried at all. After the members of Chaos left, the men in black from the Bada Chamber of Commerce also left. As for Murong Yu, he returned to the Bada Chamber of Commerce. He wasn't afraid of others guessing his relationship with the Bada Chamber of Commerce. It was better if they misunderstood that he had a close relationship with the Bada Chamber of Commerce. In this way, Murong Yu would have less trouble. No one dared to find trouble with Murong Yu. After returning to his room in the Bada Chamber of Commerce, Murongyu entered the Hichu Luoshu world. After a while, in a valley outside of Meteor City, Murongyu appeared out of thin air. Not long after he appeared, the original members of Chaos had entered the valley in a mighty manner. Without hesitation, Murongyu kept all these people into the Hichu Luoshu world. At the same time, he entered the Hichu Luoshu world again. Swoosh, swoosh, whoosh. Soon after, figures tore through the sky from afar and landed in the valley. However, what made them feel strange was that the hundreds of black-clothed men from before had disappeared into thin air. Strange, they clearly entered this valley and did not come out, but now they have disappeared. Could it be that they really disappeared into thin air? An expert said in a deep voice, "These people were the cultivators who had followed the members of Chaos here. They did not dare to get too close earlier. When they saw that the members of Chaos had entered the valley and did not come out for a long time, they finally went forward to check. That's impossible. How could they suddenly disappear? Could it be that there is some other mystery here?" Seeing a group of people enter the valley but not come out, everyone was puzzled. Since it was impossible for him to disappear into thin air, there must be something else going on here. Perhaps there was something mysterious underground, or perhaps there was a powerful illusion array here. In the following period of time, countless experts from various sects came one after another. Their goal was to search for the legendary mystery in the valley. However, these people had never thought that this was just an ordinary valley. What mysteries did it have? They had been fooled by Murongyu. Back then, after Murongyu brought the members of Chaos to Hichu Luoshu, he did not come out immediately. Instead, he was counting the various elixirs that he had plundered from the Su family. There were various elixirs, such as the Energy Recovery Elixir, Flying Swords of Dharma, and spiritual weapons, as well as various treasures. There were so many that he could not count them all. 10 trillion Energy Recovery Elixirs. The rest of the elixirs were also counted in the trillions. Among them, there were as many as 100,000 flying swords and Dharma weapons of the Dharma weapon level. There were more than 5,000 flying swords and Dharma weapons of the spiritual weapon level that were extremely rare even in the cultivation world. Not to mention the 10 spiritual meridians. With just these, Murongyu made a huge profit by destroying the Su family. Moreover, there were other treasures of the heavens and earth. The value was immeasurable. Although I'm still far from a super sex like the 10 great sects, compared to some first-rate sects, my wealth is not far behind. Murongyu laughed lasciviously. One should know that he had 100,000 members of Chaos under him. The daily consumption of these people was an astronomical figure. Even if the Energy Recovery Elixir was provided by the 9th spiritual meridian in the ultimate heaven realm, Murongyu was not too short on money. However, Murongyu lacked flying swords and Dharma weapons. Although he had looted many shops previously, the flying swords inside were enough to provide for everyone. Therefore, among the 100,000 members of Chaos, there was still a considerable number of people who did not have a suitable flying sword. This time, the various flying swords and Dharma weapons obtained from the Su family, although most of them were of the Dharma weapon level, they were barely enough. After all, with Murongyu's current wealth, it was far from enough to equip 100,000 people with Dharma weapons of the spiritual weapon level. It could even be said that even the 10 great sects were not so generous. Among the hundreds of thousands of disciples of the 10 great sects, there were only a relatively small number who had Dharma weapons. Moreover, these people were either related to the sects or had made great contributions to the sects or were geniuses who were focused on training by the sections. To equip 100,000 people with Dharma weapons and Dharma weapons of the spiritual weapon level, I still need to work hard. Murongyu sighed. Now, he was embarrassed to let the members of Chaos appear in front of the world. Imagine a large group of masters of the combination stage all holding Dharma weapons of the Dharma weapon level. How shameful it was. Well, I have to rob more of these big forces in the future. Murongyu thought in his heart and prepared to leave the Hichu Luoshu world. I didn't expect I didn't expect the Su family to have such a treasure." Just as he was about to leave, Hichu's voice came into his ears. "What is it? Even Hichu can't help but praise it?" Moronyu felt strange and walked over. Hichu was holding a pill with a faint light in his hand. It was not the energy recovery pill, nor was it a breakthrough pill. This was a pill that Moronyu had never seen before. The tribulation-breaking pill. Before Moronyu could ask, Hichu said, "The tribulation-breaking pill." It was the tribulation-breaking pill. Moronyu was stunned at first, then he was ecstatic. The tribulation-breaking pill could help a cultivator break through to the combination stage as long as there was enough spiritual chi in the tribulation-breaking pill. However, the peak of the combination stage was their peak. There were no side effects of taking the tribulation-breaking pill. However, it was much more difficult for a cultivator who took the tribulation-breaking pill to reach the peak of the combination stage from the combination stage to the tribulation-passing stage from the combination stage. Although it was not impossible to break through to the tribulation-passing stage for the rest of their lives, it was just several times more difficult than ordinary cultivators. It was just several times more difficult, which seemed to be nothing. However, it was extremely difficult for a cultivator of the combination stage to reach the tribulation-passing stage. Most cultivators were stuck in the combination stage and could not break through to the tribulation-passing stage for the rest of their lives, let alone those who took the tribulation-breaking pill to improve their cultivation. Unless some people were very talented, it was very likely that they would not be able to break through to the tribulation-passing stage for the rest of their lives. However, it was different with the tribulation-breaking pill. The tribulation-breaking pill only had one function. It could help a cultivator of the combination stage smoothly break through to the tribulation-passing stage. There was enough spiritual chi in a tribulation-breaking pill. In other words, Moronyu would soon have a large number of experts in the transformation stage under his command. At that time, he would have 100,000 experts in the transformation stage. Such a terrifying force, who in the entire cultivation world would have such a big hand. At that time, Moronyu only needed to rely on the power of the chaos to run amok in the cultivation world. The top 10 sects? He would sweep them all away. Of course, this was just an idea. It was extremely difficult to build an army of experts in the transformation stage. Even with the tribulation-breaking pill and the tribulation-passing pill, not everyone could successfully break through to the transformation stage. Of course, as long as there were these pills, Moronyu would have the possibility to do so. Moreover, the members of the chaos were tempering their bodies in the tribulation thunder almost every day. They had already developed some resistance to the tribulation thunder, which would be of great help to them in their tribulation transcendence. The heavens are really helping me. I get whatever I want. Moronyu laughed. He was worried about where to find the tribulation-breaking pill. Who would have thought that he would get this tribulation-breaking pill just by casually destroying a family? This was called wearing out iron shoes in a fruitless search, only to find it without any effort. In other words, unintentionally planting a willow tree would lead to a shade. If the expert in the transformation stage of the Su family hadn't attacked Moronyu, he would have destroyed the Zhang family with his original plan. Hichu, hurry up and get the pill formula for this tribulation-breaking pill. It's best to mass-produce it as soon as possible. I want to build an army of experts in the transformation stage. Moronyu laughed lasciviously. Looking at his lascivious and smug look, Hichu had the urge to slap him. However, Hichu was obviously happy. After all, he had witnessed Zhao Yun's death before his very own eyes. The more powerful the experts that Moronyu built, the less likely Moronyu would repeat Zhao Yun's mistakes. After being happy, Moronyu was worried again. As everyone's strength became stronger and stronger, the resources consumed every day would also increase. The most important thing was that Moronyu still needed to equip them with some magical weapons. Thinking about it, Moronyu felt a little depressed. However, as long as he thought that he would have an army of experts in the transformation stage soon, he was still too excited. In the following time, Hichu went to get the pill formula for the tribulation-breaking pill, and Moronyu began to inspect his subordinates like a leader. At the same time, he also distributed the weapons and magical weapons that he had obtained this time. On the other hand, Murong-Yu, who was inside He Tu and Luo Shu, knew that the various sects and clans had already scoured the valley for their sudden disappearance. With the tribulation-breaking pill, with the magic of Yin Cauldron, he believed that he could soon get the pill formula for the tribulation-breaking pill. At that time, it could be mass-produced. And soon, even if the members of Chaos couldn't break through to the transformation stage for a while, their strength would skyrocket. At the same time, many sects had turned the nameless valley outside Meteor City upside down. There was nothing. And at this time, they realized that they had been played by Murong-Yu unknowingly. Chapter 210. However, no one dared to find trouble with Murong-Yu because of this. After all, the strength of Murong-Yu's men in black was obvious to all. They were so terrifying. The Su family, one of the 3 major families in Luoxing City, was destroyed by him. No one dared to offend Murong-Yu again. Maybe they would be the next Su family. Therefore, when Murong-Yu appeared in Luoxing City again, many people were talking about him and attracting his attention. However, no one dared to find trouble with him. Even the Zhu family and the Zhang family did not dare to do so. At least, on the surface, they did not dare to do so. Did they have to do it secretly? There were probably a lot of people who hated Murong-Yu to the core. If they had the chance, they would definitely secretly plot against him. Uncle, is this Luoxing City one of the 5 major cities in the cultivation world? It's really many times bigger than an East City. The one who spoke was Li Feng's son, Li Ling. This guy's strength had reached the severed soul stage. Unlike other members of the Chaos who relied on the realm-breaking pill to improve their strength, Li Ling did not take it. He originally had a very powerful physique, the War Divine physique. Although this kind of divine physique could not be compared with Murong-Yu's chaotic celestial body, it was still an extremely rare physique. Here, Li Ling's aptitude was very heaven-defying. Therefore, in the past few hundred years in Hichu Luoshu, Li Ling's strength had reached the severed soul stage. Moreover, Li Ling was thrown into the tribulation thunder by Hichu every day to temper his body. Therefore, although his body was not as strong as Murong-Yu's, which had reached the 7th grade, it had reached the 3rd grade, the severed soul stage and the body of a 3rd grade spiritual weapon. Just this alone was enough for Li Ling to walk in the cultivation world. Therefore, this time, Murong-Yu brought him out of the Hichu Luoshu world. Because it was the first time for this guy to walk in the cultivation world, he could not help making a fuss every time he saw something different from the secular world. In fact, when he was in an East City, Li Ling was only 3 years old. At most, he had walked around an East City. Uncle, I want to see it myself. Is that okay? After walking with Murong-Yu for a long time, Li Ling finally couldn't help but ask. All right, but you must be careful. Once you encounter any danger, crush the jade slip I gave you at the first possible moment. Do you understand? Murong-Yu pondered for a moment before agreeing. After all, Li Ling also needed to experience the cultivation world in the end. It was impossible for him to always be by his side, which would be detrimental to his growth. Yes, I will. Then I'll go first. After getting Murong-Yu's promise, Li Ling was very happy. However, he kept Murong-Yu's warning in his heart. Even though he was a realm higher than Murong-Yu, he knew that even if there were 10 of him, he still wouldn't be a match for Murong-Yu. Seeing Li Ling skipping away like a child, Murong-Yu couldn't help shaking his head and smiling bitterly. When this child was 3 years old, he was caught by him and put into the Hichu Luoshu. If time was accelerated, he was hundreds of years old. He was older than his parents and his grandfather. However, his experience was like that of a child. In fact, if time wasn't accelerated, Li Ling was only about 4 or 5 years old at this time. Are you Mr. Murong-Yu? Our holy son invites you. Just as Murong-Yu watched Li Ling's back disappear from his sight, a voice rang in his ears. Your holy son? What holy son? Murong-Yu turned his head and saw a young man who looked like a manservant standing respectfully beside him. His expression was respectful, but there was a trace of arrogance in his eyes. The holy son of the Wuji sword sect, Xuechun, who ranks third on the Dragon Phoenix list, is my young master. As he spoke, the young man's face was filled with arrogance. It was as if the third on the Dragon Phoenix list was not Xuechun, but him. Moron Yu frowned slightly. He had never interacted with this Xuechun before. Strictly speaking, he still had a grudge with this Wuji sword sect. Back then in the extreme heaven realm, he had killed the people of the Wuji sword sect. Logically speaking, the Wuji sword sect should have wanted to kill him. Then why was this so-called holy son looking for him? Back then, Moron Yu had killed the disciples of the three great sects in the extreme heaven realm. Everyone knew about it. If Moron Yu had not triggered the heavenly tribulation and disappeared after killing tens of thousands of cultivators, he would have been hunted down by the three great sections. Not long after, Moron Yu reappeared in the cultivation world. However, at that time, there was also the chaos of the Demon Mountain. The three great clans did not have the time to chase after Moron Yu. Could it be that this so-called holy son wants to make a move on me because of what happened that day? Moron Yu's face darkened. After thinking about it, he still felt that this was a Hongmen banquet. It would be better if he did not go. Sorry, I don't know your holy son, and I'm not interested in knowing him. Moron Yu glanced at the young man indifferently, then turned to leave. The young man's arrogant face instantly darkened. Xuechun was the holy son of the Wuji sword sect, a super expert who ranked third on the Dragon Phoenix list. Which one of them did not want to get to know him? Now, he had personally sent someone to invite him, but this Moron Yu did not give him any face at all. Insult. This was simply an insult to Xuechun. The young man was furious. He quickly stepped forward and stopped Moron Yu. He said with a cold face, "Moron Yu, don't be so shameless. You refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. Our holy son wants to invite you over because he thinks highly of you. If you dare to refuse, I can only take you back." Looking at this ignorant young man in a daze, Moron Yu suddenly laughed. His laughter was a little sinister. Then, he pointed at the young man and said disdainfully, "Who do you think you are? You're just a dog slave. I don't even put your holy son in my eyes, let alone a lackey like you. Go back and tell your holy son that if he wants to see me, he should come and invite me personally. I might consider it." Moron Yu said a lot of things, scolding the young man until his face turned green and red. It had always been Moron Yu who was arrogant to others. How could he tolerate others being arrogant to him? What's more, this guy was just a dog slave. Moreover, even a dog slave was so arrogant and ignorant, let alone his master, Xuechun. Being scolded by Moron Yu, the young man couldn't help but be angry. He growled, "Shameless thing, I'll take you back now." While speaking, the young man angrily grabbed at Moron Yu with a palm. Although this guy was just a dog servant, his strength wasn't low. He had actually reached the severed soul stage. Presumably, it was because of Xuechun that he had eaten a lot of medicinal pills and spirit herbs. However, although the severed soul stage was a big realm higher than Moron Yu's out-of-body stage. However, Moron Yu would fight people of this realm no matter how many came. Narrowing his eyes slightly, Moron Yu sneered, took out the phoenix spear on his back, and then smashed it fiercely. "Put on." Moron Yu's spear hit the young man's shoulder. At this moment, the young man felt as if he was hit by a mountain. A huge force surged over and smashed him to the ground. "A dog slave dares to attack me. You're courting death." Moron Yu's eyebrows flashed a cold light. This fellow even dared to make a move on the infamous me, let alone the others. Needless to say, this guy must have killed a lot of people. "Today I'll cripple you." Moron Yu sneered, and the long spear in his hand stabbed on the young man's shoulder. Then he shook slightly. "Ah!" The young man let out a shrill scream, but he saw that his entire arm had been shattered by Moron Yu. "Go back and tell your master, don't bother me if there's nothing." Moron Yu stepped forward and kicked the young man away. In the process, the young man screamed again. "Moron Yu, you dare to cripple me. You crippled my cultivation. Master will not let you go. He will definitely kill you." The young man's face was ferocious. and he looked at Murong Yu with incomparable resentment as he roared. It turned out that Murong Yu's kick had shattered all his meridians and crippled his dantian. Unless he had some heaven-defying treasure or elixir, this guy would never be able to cultivate again in this life. With a sneer, Murong Yu did not even bother to look at him. He turned around and left. He already had a great enmity with the Limitless Sword sect, and he was already mortal enemies with this saint, so he was not afraid of offending him. Murong Yu, you're dead, you're dead. Seeing Murong Yu's back gradually disappear from his sight, the young man gritted his teeth and growled with incomparable resentment. Then, he turned around and staggered toward the Meteor Shower Tower. On the third floor of the Meteor Shower Tower, the saint of the Limitless Sword sect, Xue Chun, was drinking and chatting with a group of young handsome men on the Dragon Phoenix list, laughing happily. At this moment, a series of footsteps came from the stairs. Before the person could be seen, a strong smell of blood wafted over. Chapter 211. Xue Chun, the current holy son of the Limitless Sword sect, and his strength was even stronger than the chief disciple and holy maiden of the Limitless Sword sect. He was the strongest person in the younger generation of the Limitless Sword sect. He was the third super expert on the Dragon Phoenix list. A few days ago, when Murong Yu destroyed the Su family, Xue Chun was not in Fallen Star City. However, that battle made Murong Yu famous in the cultivation world once again. Originally, with Xue Chun's strength and cultivation, he did not care about Murong Yu, who was only ranked 85th on the Dragon Phoenix list. After all, he was one of the top 3 experts. It could even be said that in his eyes, there was only the first-ranked Li Su and the second-ranked Little Rock King. As for the other experts on the Dragon Phoenix list, even if they were in the top 10 or even the top 5, he did not care about them, because he felt that those people did not have the qualifications to be on equal footing with him. Their strength was not enough. Murong Yu naturally did not have the qualifications. However, he was very interested in Murong Yu. There was no other reason. It was because of the black-clothed men behind Murong Yu. In other words, those black-clothed men were Xue Chun's target. His goal was to get to know Murong Yu and then come into contact with the power behind him. After all, the strength of those black-clothed men was obvious to all, and they were of great help to him. Although he was the #1 person in the Limitless Sword sect, he suppressed the chief disciple and holy maiden. However, the chief disciple and holy maiden of the Limitless Sword sect were not simple people. If he, Xue Chun, wanted to successfully become the holy master of the Limitless Sword sect, he still needed to work hard. And if he could get to know the power behind Murong Yu, it would undoubtedly be of great help to him to become the holy master. Thus, we found out about Murong Yu's matter. He immediately rushed to Fallen Star City. On this day, he was drinking and chatting with a few handsome young men from the various sects in the Fallen Star Tower. Although he disdained these people from the bottom of his heart. On the surface, he had a great relationship with these people. After all, although these people were not as good as him, they were still of help to him. When he was half drunk, someone from the Limitless sect came to inform him that Murong Yu had appeared. Therefore, Xue Chun immediately sent his entourage to invite Murong Yu. In his opinion, it was the other party's honor to be able to ask his follower to invite a person who was only ranked 85th on the Dragon Phoenix ranking. On the other hand, Murong Yu should feel honored and hurry over. However, Xue Chun was already impatient from waiting, but he still didn't see Murong Yu and the rest coming over. At this moment, heavy footsteps could be heard coming from the staircase, followed by a strong smell of blood. Xue Chun frowned slightly and looked at the stairs unhappily. He wanted to see which bastard dared to ruin his mood. Footsteps sounded, and a trembling figure covered in blood appeared in front of him. When Xue Chun saw this figure, a fierce killing intent flashed across his body. Bang! Fierce murderous intent erupted like a tidal wave, sweeping out in all directions. The elites from the various sects who were originally sitting at the same table with Xue Chun were caught off guard and were directly sent flying by this terrifying aura. Everyone was shocked and angry. Was this guy having a stroke? However, although they were shocked and angry, no one dared to question him. Moreover, they clearly felt that something was wrong with Shuechen at this moment. Shueli, what's going on? Who injured you like this? Shuechen's face was as gloomy as water, and he looked at the person with a murderous aura. At this moment, Shueli was covered in blood, and one of his arms was gone. Most importantly, his cultivation had been crippled. With Shuechen's insight, he could see that Shueli's meridians and dantian had been crippled with just a glance. The person who came was Shuechen's entourage, the young man whose cultivation had been crippled by Murongyu. Master, you have to seek justice for me. Shueli took a few steps forward and knelt at Shuechen's feet with a plop. Then, he exaggerated the matter. Anyway, it was all Murongyu's fault, and he was not at fault at all. He was arrogant, and disdainful of Shuechen, etc. Shueli described Murongyu as if he was a good-for-nothing. His purpose was naturally for Shuechen to kill Murongyu to avenge him. You've gone too far. Murongyu, you're really courting death. Shuechen's face was livid, and he smashed the table in front of him into pieces. A terrifying, murderous aura emanated from his body. As the saying goes, one has to look at the master before beating a dog. Murongyu had crippled Shueli, which was obviously looking down on Shuechen. It was even an insult to Shuechen, and he did not take him seriously at all. How could Shuechen not be angry? Moreover, although Shuechen was arrogant, he was a person who would protect his own people. Although Shueli was only his follower, and he could beat and kill him, he would never allow others to touch him. After all, if it was his, he would not allow others to touch it. Master, you must seek justice for me and kill Murongyu. Shueli cried, but his eyes were filled with resentment. It was obvious that he hated Murongyu to the extreme. Don't worry, Murongyu will definitely die. Shuechen threw a pill to Shueli and ordered him to eat it to heal his injuries. On the other hand, he was filled with killing intent, and his eyes flickered with a cold light. Murongyu has become more and more arrogant recently. He's only ranked 85th on the Dragon Phoenix list, and he even looks down on Brother Shui. He's too arrogant. The people who were sent flying by Shuechen earlier walked back, and one of the young men said coldly, Brother Shui, you should really teach him a lesson, another young man said. These bastards could not wait for the two of them to start a war. Moreover, the most important thing was that Murongyu had been in the limelight recently. These people were envious and jealous of him. Now that there was an opportunity, how could he not add fuel to the fire? It would be best if Shuechen immediately killed Murongyu. As the saying went, a tall tree attracts the wind. Murongyu was becoming more and more popular. Murongyu will definitely die. Shuechen was furious, but he was not an idiot. He could tell what these people were thinking at a glance. However, it did not matter. Even if these people did not say so, he would not let Murongyu off. After all, he was the third person on the Dragon Phoenix list. If he did not show up when his man was crippled by Murongyu, then he would not be able to survive in the cultivation world in the future. Moreover, Murongyu had provoked him. If he did not kill Murongyu, he did not deserve to stay on the Dragon Phoenix list, let alone the third place. At this moment, Murongyu did not care and wandered around Fallen Star City. Unknowingly, he came to a particularly prosperous street. This street was the famous Treasure Street in Fallen Star City. The so-called Treasure Street was actually a street where some stalls were set up to buy and sell some goods. On this street, there were all kinds of things. If one was lucky enough, one could also find some treasures here, such as some heaven and earth treasures or some magic weapons and cultivation methods. Of course, the entire street was filled with these kinds of things. Although there were people here from time to time, most of them did not gain anything. Murongyu did not want to come here to find treasures. As for these treasures, Murongyu did not believe that he would have such heaven-defying luck. He had come here purely by accident, walking on the street, looking at all kinds of trinkets, dazzling his eyes. Every time he passed by a stall, the stall owners would greet him very warmly and constantly boast about how good their things were. It was as if all the things they sold were immortal weapons. Little brother, I can tell at a glance that you are not an ordinary person. Come have a look. I have everything you want here. Moreover, not long ago, a person found an immortal weapon here. A young man who looked a little down called out to Murong-yu and promoted his things. Looking at the somewhat down and out young man, Murong-yu could not help but feel a little funny. If he really sold immortal equipment here, he wouldn't be in such dire straits to set up a stall here. He was afraid that his things would have already been swept clean by others. Murong-yu shook his head. Just as he was about to leave, he caught a glimpse of a sheepskin scroll on the stall from the corner of his eye. It was a palm-sized, yellowed, and uneven sheepskin scroll. It seemed to have been there for a long time. When he saw this sheepskin scroll, his intuition told him that this sheepskin scroll was not simple. It was not an ordinary sheepskin scroll. What is this thing? Murong-yu stopped and pointed to the yellowed sheepskin scroll. The down-and-out young man smiled a little embarrassedly. It should be a sheepskin scroll. In fact, I don't know what it is. I got it by accident. However, don't look at this small sheepskin scroll. It is invulnerable. Little brother, if you don't believe me, you can try it. Murong-yu picked up the sheepskin scroll. The texture was soft and far away. It was not sheepskin at all. Looking left and right, there seemed to be some drawings on the sheepskin scroll. It was just that the sheepskin scroll was too small. He did not know what was inside. However, the stall owner's words made Murong-yu interested. After trying, Murong-yu found that with his strength, he could tear this small sheepskin scroll. The sheepskin scroll's toughness was terrifying. I'm afraid this is not an ordinary sheepskin scroll. Unfortunately, it is only the size of a palm. It is obviously not a complete one. Otherwise, I would know what this sheepskin scroll is. How much is it? Murong-yu pondered for a moment. Although he did not know what this sheepskin scroll was, he still decided to buy it. Maybe in the future, he would have the opportunity to find other fragments. At that time, he would know what this was. 100 yuan recovery pills. The stall owner said embarrassedly. He dared to sell this piece for 100 yuan recovery pills. This guy really dared to ask for too much. However, it did not matter. Murong-yu took out 100 yuan recovery pills and bought this sheepskin scroll. Haha, I made a fortune. Seeing Murong-yu's figure disappear into the crowd, the stall owner could not help but laugh. He had picked up this sheepskin scroll by chance on the road. It had been here for many years. No one had even noticed it. If it was not for the fact that this sheepskin scroll was invulnerable, he would have thrown it away. As long as someone was willing to buy it, he could sell 1 yuan recovery pill. He just casually asked for 100 yuan recovery pills. He did not expect Murong-yu to actually buy it. How could he not be happy? Chapter 2:12. However, what the young man did not know was Murong-yu really a sucker? Although he had the energy recovery pill, he did not care about these 100 pills at all. However, if he had really been cheated, even if it was just one energy recovery pill, he would still be unhappy. The reason why he bought this shabby sheepskin scroll without bargaining was because he vaguely felt that this shabby sheepskin scroll was not simple. Otherwise, on this street, there were so many things that Murong-yu did not even look at them twice. Why did he only buy this shabby item? However, although Murong-yu felt that this shabby sheepskin scroll was strange, no matter how hard he tried, he still could not find out what was wrong with it. Then, he threw the sheepskin scroll into Hichu Luoshu. At this time, in Meteor Shower Tower, Xuechun was furious and murderous. Seeing that Xueli had stopped bleeding and recovered a bit of his vitality, Xuechun led them out of Fallen Star City with a murderous look on his face. They were on their way to find Murong-yu. At this time, Murong-yu was still wandering around Treasure Street. It's time for them to find me, right? The third on the Dragon Phoenix list. I wonder how strong they are? As he walked, Murong-yu's face suddenly revealed a strange smile. Legend had it that the top 10 on the Dragon Phoenix list were all experts in the transformation period, and the top 3 were even more terrifying. He now wanted to see how strong the legendary Holy Son of the Limitless Sword Sect was. Murong-yu's face suddenly changed, and then his body swayed, disappearing into thin air. When he reappeared, Murong-yu was still in Meteor Shower City. However, He was on the other side of Meteor Shower City. It was also a street, but different from Treasure-Seeking Street. There were shops on both sides of the street. The many shops were the branches of various large sects, Chamber of Commerce, and so on. People came and went, and it was even more lively than Treasure Street. In the vicinity where Murong-yu appeared, there was already a large group of people surrounding the place, and there were even angry growls coming from within. Murong-yu's face was gloomy. He pushed aside the people in front of him and walked in with a murderous look. In the crowd, a group of people were talking about something with murderous intent. Murong-yu looked over. The moment he did, Murong-yu erupted with a terrifying killing intent and monstrous fury. "You wretched bastards!" Murong-yu bellowed as he quickly charged forward. At the center of the crowd, a young man covered in blood stood proudly on the ground. His face was pale, his hair was disheveled, and there were numerous horrifying and bone-deep wounds on his body. Bright red blood continuously flowed from the young man's body, dyeing the ground beneath his feet red. It was a ghastly sight. At this moment, the young man stood proudly between heaven and earth. Hearing this, the Yuan Su sect disciples' expressions changed and they growled. At the same time, they scanned the crowd, tried to find the person who spoke. What a joke. Our Origin Void sect is one of the 10 great sects. We have countless immortal artifacts. How could the likes of you be able to guess what we have? An old man, sinisterly, said as his gaze landed on Murong-yu. Many years ago, I've experienced Yuan Su sect's shamelessness. I thought only that idiot Sun Yuan was shameless. I didn't expect the entire Yuan Su sect to be so shameless, Murong-yu said with a cold smile. How dare you? Who are you? How dare you insult our sect leader? Do you want to die? The Yuan Su sect disciples looked at Murong-yu and said with murderous intent. Some of them even took a step forward and were about to attack Murong-yu. Uncle, you're finally here. They want to snatch my immortal weapon. However, I won't let them succeed. I've already killed a few of them. Seeing Murong-yu come out, Li Ling was overjoyed and quickly walked over. However, in the process, he pulled on his wounds. The pain made him grimace and suck in cold air. Seeing the shocking wounds on Li Ling's body, Murong-yu's anger and murderous intent intensified. Therefore, he didn't care about the murderous Yuan Su sect disciples. He took out a large pile of healing medicine and stuffed it into Li Ling's hands. He said, "Heal your wounds first. Tell me, who hurt you?" Murong-yu's face was as cold as water. His murderous intent almost materialized and spread in all directions. They all deserve to die. Li Ling looked at the Yuan Su sect disciples with hatred. Very well, then they all have to die. Murong-yu nodded and said indifferently, "Ha! I didn't hear wrong, did I? This kid said he's going to kill us?" Hearing Murong-yu's words, the middle-aged man burst into laughter, because he saw that Murong-yu was only an out-of-body cultivator, and they were all at the body integration stage. Therefore, they all sneered. A cold, murderous intent flashed between Murong-yu's brows. His eyes swept over the crowd, and he pulled Li Ling to a person. "Old brother, please take care of him for me. Don't let anyone hurt him." Wu Dong nodded. "Don't worry, no one will dare touch him." The streets here were filled with shops belonging to various sections. The Yuan Su sect shop happened to be near the Bada Chamber of Commerce's. Therefore, Wu Dong was also here. "Old brother?" Seeing Murong-yu call Wu Dong old brother, the pupils of the Origin Void sect disciples involuntarily shrank. Even the surrounding people who wanted to snatch the immortal weapon from Li Ling's hand could not help but be shocked. "Yuan Su sect? You've caused trouble for me time and time again. One day, I'll flatten your sect. But today, I'll kill all of you first and destroy your stores." Murong-yu laughed sinisterly. With a flash, he disappeared from where he stood. Bang! Almost at the same time, Murong-yu appeared in front of the middle-aged man from Yuan Su sect. Before his opponent could react, Murong-yu had already smashed him to pieces with a single punch. "You're all going to die." Murong-yu's cold voice rang out after punching the middle-aged man to death. At the same time, he reached out for the phoenix spear and swept it away. Bang! 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 Before the body integration cultivators could react, Murong-Yu's spear smashed them into clouds of bloody mist. They died an unnatural death. Those who have nothing to do with this, get out of the way or you'll have to bear the consequences. After killing the body integration cultivators, Murong-Yu growled and shook his hand. The spear in his hand suddenly erupted with a terrifying spear light. Like a black divine dragon, it roared and tore through the void, pouncing ferociously at Yuan Su-Sek's shop. Murong-Yu was going to destroy Yuan Su-Sek's shop. How audacious of him! Beast, how dare you! Boom! The spear light and the green hand collided violently and exploded with an earth-shattering boom. Then, the large hand couldn't withstand the tremendous power of the spear light and was torn apart. The enormous spear light then blasted towards Yuan Su-Sek's shop. Chapter 213. Like a black divine dragon, the enormous spear light emitted a terrifying aura and roared as it tore through the store. If it was hit by this spear light, Yuan Su-Sek's shop would probably be directly destroyed and razed to the ground. Break! A furious roar sounded from above the store, followed by a figure appearing out of thin air to block the spear light. This was a tribulation passing stage expert. He was the expert guarding the shop of the Yuan Su sect. The expert roared and emitted a terrifying aura. An incomparably terrifying power condensed in his fists, and then he fiercely punched the spear light that was shooting towards him. Rumble! A fist the size of a mountain shot out from his fist and met the spear light head-on, intending to shatter it. Murong-Yu sneered inwardly as the spear in his hand trembled and shot out one spear light after another. In an instant, the entire void was shrouded in billions of spear lights. They tore apart the heavens and earth, blotting out the sun and shattering the void as they madly attacked the tribulation passing expert. The origin void expert roared again and again, his aura growing more and more violent. Terrifying waves of power shot out in all directions like a tide, shattering the heavens and earth. It was a terrifying sight to behold. Rumble! The two sides collided fiercely. After an earth-shattering explosion, a terrifying impact swept out in all directions like a tide. Bang! 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 The cultivators watching from the sidelines bore the brunt of the impact. Some of the cultivators closer to the store were sent flying. Some of the unlucky ones even exploded and died from the bombardment. Even Murong-Yu was sent flying by the terrifying impact. As for the tribulation passing expert of the Origin Void sect, he didn't dare retreat, because behind him was Yuan Su-Sek's shop. If he retreated, the terrifying impact would raze the store to the ground in an instant. Not only could he not retreat, he roared again and unleashed all his strength to create a shield that covered the entire store. Waves of terrifying impact came crashing down like divine mountains, bombarding the tribulation passing expert's shield. The shield trembled violently as if it would shatter at any moment. However, the tribulation passing expert lived up to his name. Although the shield trembled, it didn't break in the end. He didn't have it easy either, though. His chi and blood were churning violently in his body. If he hadn't resisted the urge to vomit blood, he would have spat it out by now. After all, Murong-Yu's attack wasn't weak to begin with. Coupled with the might of an immortal weapon, it was already impressive that he could withstand it. However, Murong-Yu's attack wasn't limited to just that. With a sneer, the spear in Murong-Yu's hand trembled uncontrollably as it shot out enormous spear lights filled with a terrifying aura of destruction. They were aimed at the transcending tribulation stage expert and even the entire store. Bang! 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 The shield trembled violently and looked like it was about to shatter. However, at this moment, several people rushed out of the store one after another. Each of them was filled with killing intent as they charged at Murong-Yu. They wanted to kill Murong-Yu. The strongest among them were at the form synthesis stage. Murong-Yu just glanced at them indifferently. He didn't put them in his eyes at all. However, at this moment, Murong-Yu was starting to get impatient. Although Yuan Su's sect didn't have any experts in the transformation stage, who knew if Yuan Su's sect didn't have any in the transformation stage in Fallen Star City? Moreover, it was hard to guarantee that there would be other experts who were on good terms with Yuan Su's sect. Most importantly, the Limitless Sword sect had a holy son. Once these people intervened, you wouldn't be able to destroy Yuan Su's sect's store today. With a cold glint between his eyebrows, Yu sneered, "Endless tribulation lightning, destroy heaven and earth, break for me." Following Yu's low roar, countless tribulation clouds quickly gathered above Yuan Su's sect's store. Then, dense bolts of tribulation lightning appeared out of thin air and struck down on the shop below. Tribulation lightning. The moment they saw the tribulation clouds appear, the surrounding people exclaimed. Then, one by one, they flew into the distance. Although the tribulation lightning summoned by you didn't sweep everyone in like a tribulation. However, everyone within the tribulation lightning's range would be killed by it. The Su family, one of the 3 major families in Fallen Star City, except for the experts in the transformation stage, everyone was killed by the endless tribulation lightning. Waves of extremely dangerous aura descended from the sky. An incomparably terrifying pressure was released, suppressing the heavens and thousands of worlds. It shocked the mind and made people's souls tremble. The tribulation lightning covered the land. Lightning flashed and thunder roared, forming a world of thunder and lightning. A world that destroyed everything. Seeing this scene, the experts of Yuan Su's sect suddenly changed their expressions. "Quick, kill Yu. As long as we kill him, the tribulation lightning will dissipate." The tribulation stage expert roared. His figure shook and disappeared in a flash. Boom! The next moment, the tribulation stage expert appeared in front of Yu. At the same time, a huge fist broke through the void, carrying a terrifying aura that could destroy heaven and earth, and fiercely bombarded Yu's head. If hit, even if Yu's body had reached the level of a 7th-grade spiritual weapon, he would still be severely injured. However, was it possible for Yu to be bombarded by him? With the troop formula under his feet, his figure swayed, and he retreated rapidly. Rumble, at this moment, the tribulation lightning had already struck down. Bang! Under the bombardment of the endless tribulation lightning, the barrier set up by the tribulation stage expert was torn apart in an instant. As the barrier was torn apart, the tribulation stage expert's mind was immediately injured. With a poof sound, he spat out a mouthful of blood. "Yin Cauldron, kill for me." Yu roared in his heart and directly used the most lethal treasure at this stage. Boom! Suddenly, the void above the tribulation stage expert was torn apart by an inexplicable force. Then, a quaint ancient cauldron appeared above the tribulation stage expert. The ancient cauldron was the size of a water tank. It spun, and there were 2 kinds of strange flames burning on it. 2 extreme auras, one cold and one hot, were emitted and swept in all directions. Extremely hot, extremely cold. As soon as the yin-yang cauldron appeared, the surrounding people felt the 2 extremes of ice and fire. It was so hot that it seemed to melt, but at the same time it was so cold that it seemed to freeze. For a moment, countless cultivators were shocked and did not know why it was like this. However, they all looked at the ancient cauldron in the void with greedy eyes, because they knew that this strange feeling was emitted by the ancient cauldron. The void seemed to be burned and annihilated by the yin-yang fire. Wherever the yin-yang cauldron passed, a black hole-like crack appeared in the surrounding void. At this moment, the tribulation stage expert of the Yuan Su sect felt a sense of fear and death from his soul. He raised his head and looked up, only to see an ancient cauldron pressing down at lightning speed. He knew that it was this ancient cauldron that made him feel the sense of death. "I'ma smash it!" The tribulation stage expert roared and condensed all his strength into a huge fist. He punched the yin-yang cauldron fiercely. "Kill for me!" Yu roared and controlled the yin-yang cauldron to smash down rapidly. Bang! The tribulation stage expert's huge fist hit the yin-yang cauldron fiercely. At this moment, the yin-yang cauldron trembled violently. A large ball of yin-yang fire gushed out and covered the huge fist in an instant. Poof! With a muffled sound, the tribulation stage expert's fist was crushed directly. Impossible! Seeing this, the tribulation stage expert of the Yuan Su sect roared in disbelief. Die for me! Murong Yu roared, and the yin-yang cauldron was already pressing down fiercely. Poof! The tribulation stage expert of the Yuan Su sect was shocked. His body shook, and he was about to teleport away. However, at this moment, the yin-yang cauldron shook violently. Endless yin-yang fire swept out like a tide with the cauldron as the center. Wherever the yin-yang fire passed, the void was directly torn apart, creating a huge vacuum. Although the tribulation stage expert who had teleported was fast, he forgot that there was tribulation lightning everywhere. Just as he entered the state of teleportation, he was blasted out of the void under the bombardment of the tribulation thunder that filled the sky. At this moment, the endless yin-yang fire raged out. The tribulation stage expert of the Yuan Su sect didn't even have time to scream before he was burned to ashes by the yin-yang fire. At the same time, the entire shop of the Yuan Su sect was also razed to the ground by the tribulation lightning. What a treasure! At this moment, a low shout came from somewhere. Immediately, a white jade-like hand broke through the void from the nine heavens and reached out, quickly grabbing the yin-yang cauldron. He actually wanted to snatch the yin-yang cauldron. Murong Yu sneered in his heart. The reason why he didn't hesitate to expose the yin-yang cauldron was because he found that he had been targeted by an extremely dangerous existence. The existence that had targeted him was so terrifying that Murong Yu even felt the breath of death. That person was very dangerous. Therefore, Murong Yu used the yin-yang cauldron to kill the tribulation stage expert of the Yuan Su sect. Sure enough, just as he killed the tribulation stage expert of the Yuan Su sect, the person who had been targeting him made a move. However, this time, it wasn't targeted at him, but to snatch the yin-yang cauldron. Since you want it, I'll give it to you. Murong Yu sneered. He controlled the yin-yang cauldron to fly up to the sky and hit the white, jade-like hand. Chapter 214. The yin-yang cauldron expanded with the wind and instantly grew to the size of a house. It carried a terrifying pressure and directly collided with the white, jade-like hand. A disdainful sneer came from afar. The white, jade-like hand bent its fingers into a claw and covered the sky, grabbing at the yin-yang cauldron. Explode! The two sides instantly came into contact, and the huge hand directly wrapped around the yin-yang cauldron. It clenched its fingers and was about to grab the yin-yang cauldron. Bang! Just as the yin-yang cauldron was about to be grabbed by the huge hand, the cauldron shook violently. Then, a torrent of yin-yang fire erupted and swept in all directions. The yin-yang fire was one of the most terrifying fires in the world. Once the yin-yang fire appeared, it would burn the world. It would burn everything. The white, jade-like hand was very powerful, but it could not withstand the yin-yang fire. Chi-chi! A sharp and ear-piercing sound came from the sky. At this moment, everyone only saw that the white, jade-like hand in the void had shattered and dissipated. In front of the terrifying yin-yang fire, although the owner of the white, jade-like hand was powerful, he was no match for the yin-yang fire at all and was directly burned to ashes. At the same time, the burning hand quickly shrank and retreated into the distance. Oomph! A muffled groan came from afar. The owner of the hand must have been injured because of this. In the distance, the third on the Dragon Phoenix list, the saint of the Limitless Sword sect, Xuechun, was looking over with an ashen face. His face was as gloomy as water, and his body was emitting a terrifying killing intent. He was the one who stretched out the white, jade-like hand just now. Originally, he came to find trouble with Murong Yu and wanted to kill him. However, he did not expect to see Murong Yu showing off his power when he came nearby. At that time, Xuechun did not make a move. With his identity and status, he disdained to attack Murong Yu with those from the Yuan Su sect. Although he did not make a move, He used his divine thought to lock onto Murong-Yu. However, when Murong-Yu took out the yin-yang cauldron, his eyes lit up. Although the ancient cauldron did not look shocking, it was definitely terrifying. How could an ancient cauldron that could kill a crossing calamity stage expert be simple? Especially the yin-yang fire on the ancient cauldron. As for the yin-yang fire, people like the sage of the Limitless Sword sect had never seen it before, but they vaguely knew about it. An ancient cauldron filled with boundless yin-yang flames. One should keep in mind that the yin-yang flame was one of the most terrifying flames in the world, yet this cauldron was able to contain it without being destroyed. One could only imagine how precious this cauldron was. It was a magic treasure that was of a higher grade than immortal equipment. If he could obtain this ancient cauldron, then not to mention becoming the sacred lord of the Limitless Sword sect, it was even possible for him to sweep across the cultivation world. Because of that, Xuechen immediately made his move. However, he had overestimated himself and underestimated the terror of the yin-yang flame. If he hadn't retracted his hand quickly, his entire arm would have been incinerated by the yin-yang fire. Even so, much of his true core force was incinerated. He had suffered a hidden loss. What a powerful ancient cauldron. I want it. At this moment, a sinister voice was heard. The void shattered, and a large black hand reached out from the 9 heavens, grabbing the yin-yang cauldron. Xuechen snorted coldly, and a murderous intent flashed across his eyes. How dare you steal my item? You're courting death. As he spoke, Xuechen soared into the sky and rushed towards Murong-Yu. He had already treated the yin-yang cauldron as his own and directly ignored the owner of the cauldron, Murong-Yu. Murong-Yu's eyes flashed coldly, and a murderous aura surged. He roared in his heart, and the yin-yang cauldron hummed. It rose into the sky and violently collided with a large black hand. The flames on the yin-yang cauldron rose, and it rose into the sky, violently colliding with the large black hand. In front of the yin-yang flame, the large black hand was unable to withstand a single blow and was instantly incinerated into ashes. On the other hand, the owner of the large hand let out a blood-curdling scream. Obviously, he was severely injured. At this moment, Murong-Yu took a step forward in the air, causing the void to collapse and shatter. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps later, he still shattered countless voids and appeared in the void. He stretched out his hand, and the yin-yang cauldron turned into a stream of light and flew back to him. Murong-Yu, let me, Xuechen, fight you. At this moment, Xuechen shouted coldly, and in a flash, he had already rushed to a place not far from Murong-Yu. In the process, he stretched out his white, jade-like hand and slapped down on Murong-Yu. Murong-Yu sneered. With a thought, the yin-yang cauldron expanded with the wind and instantly became the size of a house. It collided with Xuechen's large hand. In the distance, Xuechen's pupils shrank, and he cursed in his heart, shameless. At the same time, his large hand shook, avoided the yin-yang cauldron, and slapped down on Murong-Yu. Although Xuechen was powerful, his strength could not suppress the yin-yang flame at all. If he were to meet it head-on, his large hand would be burned to ashes. As long as he killed Murong-Yu, the yin-yang cauldron would be ownerless. At that time, he could take it for himself. The strength of the 3rd powerhouse on the Dragon Phoenix list was indeed terrifying. As soon as Xuechen made his move, a terrifying aura emanated from his large hand and swept in all directions, causing the nearby cultivators to have difficulty breathing. Their faces were pale, and it was very terrifying. Murong-Yu, who was the first to bear the brunt of the aura, felt as if he had become a lonely boat in a vast ocean in a stormy sea. It was as if he would be torn apart by this terrifying power at any time. Murong-Yu's expression changed slightly. Xuechen's strength was very terrifying. Even if his physical body had reached the level of a grade 7 spiritual weapon and was equipped with the purple ribbon immortal robe, he would probably not be able to withstand a single blow from Xuechen. Even if the purple ribbon immortal robe blocked most of Xuechen's attack, the the aftershock of the power would probably be able to kill Yu. This was the strength of the top 3 powerhouses on the Dragon Phoenix list. He was much more terrifying than ordinary experts in the transformation stage. He definitely could not meet him head-on. With a thought, Yu's tribulation lightning instantly enveloped him. Even though the tribulation lightning was not powerful enough to shatter Shui Chen's power, it could at least slow down his attack. At the same time, Yu controlled the yin-yang cauldron with his mind and flew backward, suppressing Shui Chen's large hand. Haha! At this moment, a sinister laughter was heard. Following that, a figure appeared behind Yu out of thin air. At the same time, a pitch-black hand had already slapped down on Yu's head. Sneak attack. The one who attacked was obviously the expert who had snatched the yin-yang cauldron just now. He was also an expert in the transformation stage. This guy shamelessly sneaked an attack on Yu, who was only in the out-of-body stage. It was too shameless. Yu was furious. With a roar, he clenched the long spear with both hands and smashed it out with a backhand blow. Bang! After all, the other party was a cultivator in the transformation stage. The explosion of power actually sent the long spear flying. On the other hand, Yu was sent flying as if he had suffered a heavy blow. The purple ribbon immortal robe immediately burst out with a layer of halo, protecting Yu and offsetting most of the attack. Even so, Yu spat out blood. He was not a match for a cultivator in the transformation stage, let alone this guy's shameless sneak attack. Ha, kid, die. A black-clothed old man appeared in the void. He stepped in the air and smashed the void. He slapped down hard on Yu. He actually wanted to kill Yu. You're courting death. An angry roar came, but it was not Yu, but Shui Chen on the other side. With Shui Chen's status and strength, how could he allow others to interfere in the matter between him and Yu? Moreover, this black-clothed old man's goal was the yin-yang cauldron. This was a treasure that Shui Chen had already reserved. How could he allow others to covet it? With an angry roar, Shui Chen turned his big hand and gave up attacking Yu. He actually slapped down on the black-clothed old man. The black-clothed old man's face suddenly changed. Shui Chen, how about you and I join hands to kill Yu and then divide the ancient cauldron equally? As a master in the transformation stage, the black-clothed old man was still somewhat afraid of Shui Chen. This guy had the limitless sword sect behind him. He could not afford to offend him. Of course, just because he could not afford to offend him did not mean that he did not dare to, as long as he obtained the yin-yang cauldron. So what if it was the limitless sword sect? However, the yin-yang cauldron was not in his hands yet. He obviously did not want to fight with Shui Chen. The most important thing now was to kill Yu first, then snatch the yin-yang cauldron and escape. As long as he had the yin-yang cauldron, not to mention a mere Shui Chen, even if he faced the entire limitless sword sect, he would not be afraid. You dare to touch the ancient cauldron. You're simply courting death. Die for me. Shui Chen's face was cold as he scolded. Shui Chen, don't think that I'm afraid of you. The black-clothed old man was furious. He also gave up attacking Yu and gathered his strength to attack Shui Chen. You overestimate yourself. Shui Chen sneered. His white, jade-like hand was like a divine mountain pressing down. A terrifying force burst out. Bang! The black-clothed old man's power was instantly shattered. As a master in the transformation stage, Shui Chen was much stronger than him. Shui Chen sneered. He turned his palm into a fist and punched out. The heavens fell and the earth cracked. The destructive force was extremely terrifying. The black-clothed old man's face changed. He roared and instantly gathered his strength and punched out fiercely. Bang! However, the gap between the two was too big. The black-clothed old man's power could not withstand a single blow and was directly shattered. The black-clothed old man's body shook, and he spat out mouthfuls of blood. A look of horror appeared on his face. His figure swayed, and with a teleport, he flew into the distance. He had escaped without a trace. Let's see where you're going. Shui Chen sneered. His white, jade-like hand slashed in the air. Chi! A dazzling white sword light appeared out of thin air and quickly slashed at the black-clothed old man who was escaping. Ah! In the void hundreds of miles away, a bloody mist suddenly burst out. Following that, two figures fell out of the void. It was actually the corpse of the black-clothed old man from before, the corpse that had been split in half. A transformation stage master was killed by Xuechun, just like that. Xuechun's strength was terrifying. Chapter 215. Xuechun had easily killed an expert in the transformation period. Even though the black-clothed man was just an ordinary transformation stage expert, he was still a transformation stage expert with terrifying strength. However, Xuechun's strength was even more terrifying. So this is the existence ranked third on the Dragon Phoenix list. Seeing this scene, the crowd kept exclaiming in admiration and envy. In the distance, Murong stabilized his body and looked at Xuechun, who was floating in the air with a gloomy face. This guy's strength was even stronger than he had expected. However, so what if this was the case? The stronger the enemy, the stronger he would be. You're overestimating yourself. Xuechun sneered and looked at Murong. He didn't know if he was talking about the transformation stage old man or Murong. Xuechun looked down at Murong and said coldly, "Hand over the ancient cauldron obediently and cripple your cultivation, and I can spare your life." Murong sneered. "Sorry, I don't like to do it myself. If you want it, then do it yourself." A cold light flashed across Xuechun's eyes. "In that case, I'll fulfill your wish." Before he finished speaking, Xuechun had already slapped down with his palm. The white, jade-like hand traversed the void and shattered it. It blotted out the sky and the sun, and it quickly slapped down with terrifying, killing intent. It was very terrifying. He couldn't even withstand the attack of the black-clothed old man, and Xuechun was even stronger than the black-clothed old man. He couldn't withstand it. Murong pondered in his heart. At the same time, the Yin-Yang cauldron had been summoned back by him. It floated above his head, and Yin-Yang flames fell down and covered Murong. At the same time, Murong used the army formula to increase his speed to the limit and retreated rapidly. Xuechun sneered. His large hand shattered the void, and, like a maggot attached to a bone, he viciously swatted at Murong. Boom! At this moment, 20 extremely condensed silhouettes of horned dragons appeared out of thin air above Murong's head. Suddenly, a vast and terrifying aura was emitted from the horned dragons. The black horned dragons with distinct scales were incomparably malevolent and terrifying. He gathered the power of 25 horned dragons in his hand and channeled it into the phoenix spear. With a low roar, he thrust out his spear. A huge mountain-like spear light tore out, containing an incomparably terrifying power, and blasted towards Xuechun's big hand. Xuechun's expression did not change, and his large hand pressed forward. Bang! Murong's spear light was like a piece of tofu in front of Xuechun's big hand, and it was directly shattered. He couldn't even block it for a moment. Although the strength of 25 horned dragons was already very strong, Xuechun was an expert in the transformation stage. Even the trashiest transformation stage expert had the strength of 70 horned dragons, which was much stronger than Murong. Not to mention a genius like Xuechun. He had at least 90 points of horned dragon power. There is a difference of 70 points of horned dragon power between 90 and 25. Murong, you couldn't even withstand a single blow. Xuechun, you're a transformation stage expert, the third expert on the Dragon Phoenix list, and you're actually attacking me, a mere out-of-body stage cultivator. You're really shameless. Murong suddenly laughed. Xuechun's expression sank slightly, and then he sneered and said, Murong you crippled my follower, but I won't kill you. I'll just take you down and cripple your cultivation. Otherwise, you'll say that I'm bullying you. I'll say it again. If you want to cripple my cultivation, then do it yourself. However, I suddenly have something to do today, so I won't play with you. Murong laughed loudly, and his figure swayed, and he disappeared into thin air. Bang! Just as Murong disappeared into thin air, Xuechen's big hand had already attacked. However, Murong had already disappeared, and only a large part of the void collapsed. Xuechen's face suddenly turned ashen, and his ocean-like divine sense crazily spread out, sealing off this part of the void. However, no matter how hard he searched, he still couldn't find Murong figure. At the same time, many onlookers or experts who were alarmed by the battle here were greatly shocked. This was because they couldn't find out how Murong disappeared. It wasn't teleportation, nor was it a powerhouse who had transferred him. Instead, he had truly disappeared into thin air. Murong must have a spatial magic treasure, and this magic treasure can carry a living person. Xuechen, whose face was ashen, thought so. Not only him, but many powerhouses also had this thought in their minds. There were many spatial magic treasures, and those storage bags and storage rings were all of this type of magic treasure. However, storage rings and the like could only be stored in inanimate objects, which were inanimate objects. Obviously, Murong's spatial magic treasure could carry a living person. This kind of magic treasure could no longer be called a magic treasure, but a small world. Its value was even many times higher than that of the Yin Cauldron. Who is this Murong? How can he have so many treasures? The surrounding cultivators couldn't help but guess in their hearts. Murong is indeed a moving treasure. The treasures on his body are probably not inferior to that of a first-rate sect, or even close to the top 10 sections. Spatial magic treasure, Yin Cauldron, and various magic treasures that had appeared before. Murong's magic treasures were simply endless. If it weren't for Xuechen's strength, Murong would have been able to pile him to death with magic treasures. It's actually a spatial magic treasure that can carry a living person. I must get this magic treasure. In the void, Xuechen's expression kept changing. At the same time, the same thought flashed through the minds of many experts. If they had such a magic treasure that could carry a living person, they would definitely have a few more lives. Just like Murong, no one could do anything to him if they couldn't beat him. This was simply a must-have killing weapon for traveling, killing, and escaping. For a moment, countless people's hearts were burning with eagerness. Each and every one of them was thinking of ways to catch Murong off guard and kill him so that they could seize the spatial treasure. At this moment, everyone was suddenly enlightened. Why could Murong disappear into thin air previously? It was entirely because of this spatial magic treasure. Xuechen and the other cultivators from the various great sects immediately reported the matter back to their respective sections. Immediately report this matter back to the sect. Keep a close eye on Murong's movements. The moment he appears, kill him immediately. Not long after, the entire cultivation world would be swept up in a bloodbath. This kind of spatial magic treasure that could carry a living person was coveted even by immortals. After all, with this thing, it was equivalent to having a few more lives. No one would be unwilling to have a few more lives. Murong disappeared into thin air. Even the divine thoughts of the various experts couldn't find his trace. Therefore, the surrounding people who were watching the show dispersed. Bang! However, at this moment, a huge muffled sound came from the other side of the street. Following that, waves of terrifying pressure spread over. Feeling this terrifying pressure, everyone was shocked. They all rose into the air and looked in the direction of the pressure. At the end of the street, the sky was filled with tribulation lightning. Endless tribulation lightning raged. Everything within a few hundred meters was bombarded by the tribulation lightning, exploding and turning into dust. Bastard! The sex shop! Xuechen looked over and roared in the next moment. Then, his body flashed, and he disappeared from the spot with a teleport. Xuechen, this is my big gift to you. Well, there will be many more gifts coming in the future. I'm leaving. Keeping the Yin Cauldron, Murong looked at the limitless sword sex shop that had been burned by him and laughed with satisfaction. Murong, go to hell. Hearing Murong's words, Xuechen, who was teleporting, staggered and almost fell out of the void. At the same time, A terrifying sword light tore through the void and slashed in the direction of Murongyu. Unfortunately, Murongyu had already entered the Hichu Luoshu world and disappeared. Boom! The sword light that Xuechun slashed out in anger contained power that was several times more terrifying than the one that killed the black-clothed old man. With a slash of the sword, it almost split the power of a few miles into a bottomless space crack. The tribulation lightning dissipated, and the magnificent limitless sword sect shop had long disappeared. Only a huge pit was left. Murongyu, I will kill you. Seeing this, Xuechun's face turned pale. He was furious and roared to the sky. A terrifying, murderous aura erupted from his body like a stormy sea. It was very terrifying. Murongyu crippled his follower and rejected his invitation. This was the first time he was slapped in the face. He tried to snatch the Yin-Yang cauldron, but Murongyu escaped unscathed. This was the second time he was slapped in the face. And now, Murongyu destroyed the limitless sword sect shop under his nose. This was the third time he was slapped in the face. In one day, he was slapped in the face by Murongyu 3 times in a row. Moreover, the other party was an out-of-body cultivator, an ant that was 4 realms lower than him. How could he not be angry? He was the holy son of the limitless sword sect, the 3rd strongest on the Dragon Phoenix list. How could he swallow this anger? At this time, Xuechun's hair was dancing wildly. The murderous aura on his body was almost tangible. He was about to be angered to death by Murongyu. He wanted to grab Murongyu and tear him into millions of pieces. This Murongyu is quite interesting. In Fallen Star City, on top of a tall building, a woman in white looked over with a smile in her eyes. At the same time, on the other side of the roof, Hutong, the 7th on the Dragon Phoenix list, had an inexplicable light and blurred color in her eyes. What an interesting person. Unfortunately, his strength is a bit lacking. On the other side, in a dark place, a woman with a graceful figure looked forward and whispered. Her appearance could not be seen clearly, but her figure was graceful. Sister Qingqin, could it be that you have feelings for that Murongyu? A woman beside the woman suddenly said with a smile. Qingqin, holy maiden of the all-pleasure sect, a super beauty who is 5th on the 100-flower list. Chapter 2:16. In the extreme celestial realm, in the underground cave, in the rank 9 spirit vein. Murongyu sat cross-legged in the rank 9 spirit vein like a river, drifting with the waves. I'm too weak. I'm no match for an expert in the transformation stage, especially an expert like Xuechun. Murongyu exhaled a mouthful of turbid qi and said gloomily. He was now very powerful. He could kill a cultivator in the tribulation passing stage when he was in the out-of-body stage. He had crossed 3 major realms and 9 minor realms. With such terrifying strength, even Xuechun and the others were far inferior to him. With Murongyu's strength, it was basic to say that he was invincible in the same realm. He was simply a monster to cross 3 major realms and 9 minor realms to kill an enemy. However, this was not enough for Murongyu. He had many enemies, and this time, Hichu Luoshu was exposed. His enemies would be very powerful. There was a terrifying expert like Xuechun in the younger generation. In addition to those sect master-level figures, these young experts were also very powerful. Xuechun's strength was comparable to an ordinary sect master-level figure. Moreover, many of the 10 great sects were Murongyu's enemies. With Murongyu's current strength, it was far from enough to deal with these people. Ever since he saw Xuechun's strength, Murongyu felt that he had been too arrogant in the past. Back then, when he was only in the revolving reflection stage, he had injured the sect master of Zhuxianzong, Zhuang Ningguang. At that time, Murongyu thought that the sect masters of the 10 great sects were no big deal. However, Xuechun was only a saint of the 10 great sections. His strength was already so terrifying, let alone those sect masters and grand elders. Moreover, there were some old monsters in these sects who lived in seclusion. It's time to raise my realm, Murongyu muttered. then closed his eyes and began to break through with all his strength. Murong-Yu was a chaotic celestial body, so realms were not a problem for him at all. As long as he had enough power, he would be able to break through the barrier of the realm and break through to the next realm. However, Murong-Yu's strength was getting stronger and stronger. Every time he broke through, he would need more and more power. Just like now, ever since Murong-Yu had broken through to the out-of-body stage, he had not been able to make any further breakthroughs. This was because he didn't have enough power in his body to break through to the next realm. Even if he had the breakthrough pill, it wouldn't work. Without sufficient strength, even if one consumed the Realm Breaker pill, one would still be unable to achieve a breakthrough. After all, the breakthrough pill didn't contain a lot of spiritual chi. It was only used to help break through the barrier of cultivation. Murong-Yu wanted to devour enough spiritual energy and refine it into his own strength so that he could break through to the spirit-severing stage in one fell swoop. After Murong-Yu began to cultivate, the liquefied spiritual chi was absorbed by him through every pore of his body. At this time, Murong-Yu had already activated the chaotic celestial body record crazily. After the spiritual chi that entered Murong-Yu's body was transformed by the chaotic celestial body record, it became the black power of Murong-Yu, which was the chaotic power. However, after the transformation, only 70% of the power of the spiritual chi that he devoured was transformed. As for the remaining 30%, it was the impure, turbid chi contained in the spiritual chi. After removing the turbid chi, only 70% of the power was transformed into the chaotic power. However, what made Murong-Yu a little depressed was that most of the 70% power was distributed to his limbs and bones, constantly tempering his body and meridians. As Murong-Yu transformed more and more power, his body and realm became more and more powerful. Especially his meridians, they were constantly broadened. However, the growth of Murong-Yu's power was extremely slow. At this speed, he didn't know when he could reach the peak of the out-of-body stage, or even break through the barrier of the realm and rush into the severed soul stage. This was because Murong-Yu was already at the late out-of-body stage. Otherwise, if he broke through from the late out-of-body stage to the doppelganger stage, the power required was even more terrifying. If it goes on like this, when can I accumulate enough power? Murong-Yu rolled his eyes and said helplessly. At this time, he particularly missed the chaotic power in the depths of the Demon Mountain. If he cultivated there at this time, it wouldn't take long for him to break through to the severed soul stage. However, the chaos spiritual vein was in the depths of the Demon Mountain forbidden area. With Murong-Yu's current strength, he couldn't enter at all. Of course, if he used the Hichu Luoshu to sneak in, it was still possible. However, now the monsters of the Demon Mountain had come out, those powerful monster kings, and even the fierce man who went through the tribulation. Murong-Yu wasn't confident that these people wouldn't find him sneaking in. Although his power was gradually increasing, it was too slow. Murong-Yu suddenly opened his mouth, and the spiritual energy in the 9th-rank spiritual vein seemed to be crazy, turning into a huge river that was swallowed by him. It's still not fast enough. Seeing that the speed of the transformation of the power in his body was countless times faster, Murong-Yu still felt it was too slow. So, he took a big breath, and suddenly, more terrifying spiritual energy was sucked in by him. He didn't know how long had passed, 5 days, 10 days, or half a month. Under the crazy devouring of Murong-Yu, the power in his body finally reached the limit of the late out-of-body stage. Murong-Yu sucked in another stream of spiritual energy. Kacha! Murong-Yu only heard the sound of glass breaking in his body. Then he saw that the barrier between the out-of-body stage and the severed soul stage that had been blocking him for a long time was broken by his own power. At this moment, an aura that was more than 10 times stronger than before erupted from Murong-Yu's body. It was extremely terrifying. At the same time, Murong-Yu's physical body, which had already reached the level of a grade 7 spiritual weapon, also began to transform under the refinement of his strength. He quickly rushed towards the level of a grade 8 spiritual weapon. At the same time, his originally large meridians began to expand again after he broke through to the spirit severing stage. I'm at the early stage of the spirit severing stage. I must continue to cultivate and try to enter the form synthesis stage in one fell swoop. Seeing that he had broken through to the spirit severing stage, Muronyu didn't stop cultivating immediately. Instead, he circulated the primal chaos celestial record even faster. At the same time, he began to devour the spirit energy outside even faster. Originally, Muronyu's speed of absorbing spiritual energy was already very terrifying. However, after breaking through to the spirit severing stage, it was even more terrifying. Early stage of the spirit severing stage, middle stage of the spirit severing stage, late stage of the spirit severing stage, peak of the late stage of the spirit severing stage. Under Muronyu's crazy cultivation, with the support of enough spiritual energy, his realm has entered the peak of the late stage of the spirit severing stage. Finally, after entering the peak of the late stage of the spirit severing stage, the power in his body had reached the limit and could no longer accommodate any more power. However, this power alone was not enough for him to reach the body integration stage. This was because his body and meridians had already reached their limits. If he wanted to contain more power, he would have to raise the level of his physical body. It had to be at least an 8th grade spirit artifact. Muronyu stood up and felt the powerful strength in his body. He couldn't help but show a trace of joy on his face. With my current strength, I can even kill a crossing calamity stage cultivator with one punch. But Muronyu frowned slightly. Even if it's an ordinary expert in the transformation period, they can still fight without relying on various treasures. However, they are far from the level of Shuechen. I'm still not Shuechen's opponent. Muronyu frowned slightly. However, I'm just at the spirit severing stage now. As long as I cultivate to the combination stage, I will have the power to fight Shuechen. If I cultivate to the crossing calamity stage, I can pinch him to death. If I can cultivate to the transformation period, I will be invincible in the cultivation world. Thinking of this, Muronyu suddenly felt heroic. With a shake of his body, Muronyu disappeared from the 9th grade spirit vein. Soon after, he appeared on the ground of the ultimate heavenly realm. At the moment when Muronyu appeared, the void above his head was shrouded by a dense tribulation cloud. Bolts of lightning flashed, exuding an incomparably terrible pressure, which deterred all the worlds. Am I going to be struck by lightning again? Looking at the tribulation thunder in the void, Muronyu's face showed a smile. Muronyu actually smiled at him when talking about the heavenly tribulation that would make cultivators pale in fright. If it was anyone else, they would be scared to death if they knew that he was going to undergo a tribulation. Only a freak like Muronyu would disdain these tribulation thunder. This tribulation might be many times more terrifying than the tribulation thunder when he entered the out-of-body stage, but to him now, it was no threat at all. Am I going to the limitless sword sect to undergo the tribulation? Let them experience it too? Muronyu suddenly had this idea in his mind. However, he quickly dismissed this idea. There were at least hundreds of thousands of people in the limitless sword sect, and there was no lack of first-step immortals among them. If he were to undergo the tribulation there, then the tribulation would be hundreds of times more terrifying than the tribulation that killed tens of thousands of people at the entrance of the ultimate heavenly realm. At that time, even if Muronyu had the Hichu Luoshu, he would still be blasted into smithereens. However, although I can't undergo the tribulation in the limitless sword sect, I want to find a few people to share the tribulation thunder. In everyone being struck together is the real lightning. Muronyu's face revealed a strange smile, and then disappeared into the ultimate heavenly realm. All of these tribulation thunder were different from the tribulation thunder that Muronyu summoned. The power of the tribulation thunder that Muronyu summoned was only controlled by Muronyu, and it would not increase because of the number of people. However, this tribulation thunder that appeared when breaking through was different. Back then, Muron relied on this disguise to kill tens of thousands of people from various sects. Now, looking at Muron's strange smile, he definitely wanted to trick people. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.